enough.
All
Have hope for the
right.
future, for your gay space communism, okay?
What's good, Ed? Welcome, one and all, to the Minds of the Ecclesia. I am your host, Lethe Water Kai, and with me, a man soon to fly off into the stratosphere, TyberiusD.
Unironically, possibly true. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I know that we just got started and we didn't give you fair warning, but we were kind of wondering if this was going to take off. And not because we didn't have this scheduled. We're getting hit by a massive thunderstorm in my general area. It jumped 20 degrees today. Yeah, it's been nice and windy all day, but the problem is it's firing off multiple tornado warnings. So in the event that I am here and I suddenly just cut the fuck out, maybe, just maybe, I died telling everybody the thing that I love to do, why they're wrong. So thank you for Lethe for having me on for this wonderful episode. It's good to see you here. I'm not streaming anymore because I don't do that shit. But yeah, you don't have to bother to follow me. You can always just request Lethe to have me on again because I piss in everybody's Cheerios.
Bad choice
But
of
yeah,
words. Take off. No.
All right, Lethe. Speaking of which, how you been, man?
I've been cool. Definitely better than what's going on out there. I'm seeing pictures of these storms. I'm hearing people are out storm chasing. Like, it's real deal.
All right. Let me
I had
see. I
fires,
want to
you get massive wind. Captain Planet only fucks with me like one time during the year.
Oh no, you get earthquakes. What are you talking about?
That happens like so rarely, and I sleep through most of them.
Well, okay, that's true, but every now and again you get the big one that levels buildings, and I'll trade you, okay? Like, we get a tornado, it might take out a small town if it's a big one. You get an earthquake, it takes out entire cities.
I mean, we had that. There's that earthquake that happened in like what, Malaysia, that took out like close to 2,000 people.
Yeah, we can start with that. Yeah, foreign policy kind of conversation, but actually news. There was a earthquake in Myanmar, formerly known as Burma. And yeah, Myanmar had it rocked, but the shockwaves extended into the neighboring Thailand. As far as I remember, it was like a 7.3. But remind you that a lot of these places aren't retrofitted for earthquakes, even though they live in a semi-active earthquake zone. Well, they had a skyscraper or two collapse in some of these areas, right? Like, I don't know what the fatality rate is, but it's pretty nasty. It's not as bad as Turkey, right? That one that happened, a year or two ago. Of course, watch it'll be 4 years ago, and I'm just realizing it. Oh yeah, I want to show this just for all of the lovely audience here. I'm gonna stream this so that you can check this out. Give me a hot second here just to full screen this if I even can anymore. Will you let me do it? Will you let me do it?
Should be able to.
Well, see, the problem is that our good friends over at the Weather Channel, which is not the best one. Hey, there it is. There it is. Here we go. 1 second. Yeah, let's go. Okay, this is the line of storms that are coming through the Midwest right now, and I'm at that blue dot. Yeah, I'm actually getting hit with the first wave of this. Multiple tornado warnings up and down the system. This is not a detailed map, but this is just kind of getting an idea. Yeah, it's pretty mean. It's pretty nasty. My dogs that you may hear are freaking out in the other room, even with Star Trek playing. So it's a little nerve-wracking for them as well. But yeah, if I happen to just blow the fuck away, this is why. This is what's going on. So yeah, thanks for having me again, buddy. We always pick the perfect times. Disaster is always imminent whenever Tiberius comes on the Lethe show.
Hey, you are a force of nature. Let's go.
That is true. Anyway, getting off of that particular
FEMA will come save you. Wait a minute.
Nope. Thanks for Trump. Defunded. Let's go. Whoops. All the people who need FEMA defunded it or didn't care. Actually, I don't know the case of that. But I did close the stream so we can kind of get back to reality as we see it here.
Well, I mean, this
neat.
is
Somebody got
serious reality.
Yeah. Anyway, I will be kind of keeping my eye to the side here, making sure I'm not getting fired off with a tornado warning. But yeah, so what would you like to talk about, Lethe?
I mean, there's one pressing thing that's been on my mind, and it's an answer from you on a thing that's been bothering me for a very long time that I feel like I've been getting gaslit on.
Oh, this will be good.
Going back to FDR's progressive tax code.
Sure.
And I'm talking like 30s, 40s tax code.
We're talking about largely what came in after or during the New Deal. Ooh, there is
Yes.
a tornado there. Yeah. Ooh, where's that going? Okay, it's supposed to go north of me. Sorry, there is actually a tornado, kind of generally not terribly far away, so I'm gonna keep an eye on that one. Yeah, his tax codes came in response as part of the New Deal. Was amended during the 1937 Congress, and then kind of reaffirmed in some regards during the Truman and Eisenhower administrations.
Mm-hmm.
What's your question?
Could going to a similar tax code with reforms be a good thing to do now?
Potentially yes, potentially no. A lot of people have this really weird fever dream. It's kind of weird where it's like, oh, we need to go back to the Eisenhower tax code. And it's like, okay, but you do realize it had a piss load of loopholes. The
We
effective
get rid of
tax rate,
those. Like, get rid of all that shit.
well, that happened under Reagan, ironically enough. And so you had a far more streamlined tax code, and the effective tax rate went up during those days. So it's one of those deals where people are like, oh, well, we had prosperity and we had people could afford a 2-bedroom house or a 3-bedroom house and a car with one income. We need to go back to that. I'm like, that's not really what caused that. There was a few things that I will outline were good ideas, but most of that wasn't because of taxation. And the more that we try to tax the rich, looking at you, France, the more that we either run them away, which is kind of not an option for us, or more particularly is that we kind of piss in everybody's shoes. There's one thing in that tax code that was definitely worth looking at, definitely worth reconsidering. And that's not a income tax, or that's not even a, what is the term called? I can't remember. It's not even just a standard business tax. It's a profit tax. Is that if you are a major entity of, if you're some kind of major entity, you got taxed on your profit, not your income. You could have all the income you want, you can have all the expenditures you want. But if you had profit, you would be taxed on that at a pretty exorbitant rate. Now, there was a lot of loopholes for that, right? If you paid people dividends to their stockholders, that wasn't in part of that. That wasn't profit, that was being paid out, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But on the other hand, one of the things that it did encourage, and sometimes there was tax write-offs on top of this, again, part of the loopholes, was if you had some of that money go to employee training or employee hiring or just wages in general, we would cut you a little bit of a nice deal, kind of a nice grab, right? That's some of the stuff that needs to be talked about from that time because it had a bit of a different mindset. It was trying to encourage investment. But here's the real kicker. The reason why you have such a stellar economy from largely 1952 all the way up until 1965 is, maybe even 1970, even though people were like, oh, the 60s were terrible, is everyone else was kind of not available. Everyone else was bombed, right? Japan took the better part of 15 to 20 years to get back on their feet. The Germans, the same thing. The Brits were bankrupt. The French were occupied for 4 years. We literally had this idea. It was called the Marshall Plan. You may have heard of it. We loaned everyone a piss load of money to buy American things. We literally had them either buy or loan Missouri mules that went to Greece so that Greece could kind of reboot its agriculture system. Some of the tools that German factories needed to get Volkswagen going again. Those were done through American companies. Part of this is actually what draws us out of the post-war recession by 48, is that we are able to not only export the things that they need just to live, right, like food shipments and all that, or all the 9 yards there, but we're also able to ship industrial supplies, not only for retooling our own factories, but retooling theirs and rebuilding them. So we got loaded. We got absolutely loaded, top to bottom after the war. But it really isn't the tax code that everyone likes to put up. I wish it was. It's not. It really just came down to we didn't have any competition. We could charge whatever the hell we wanted. And we basically had a geopolitical monopoly for the better part of 15 years. So sorry to burst people's bubbles on that one, but that is the real 1950s fever dream in practice. Is that if you want America to have that level of economy again, you have to bomb everybody else off the face of the earth.
So, like, primarily what I was looking at is the repeal of Buckley versus Vallejo, or overturning Buckley versus Vallejo, and possibly a second passing or a Reform Revenue Act of 1937.
I got to look into that one. Usually when somebody talks about this area, they talk about, what is it? Is it Smooth Tarfley? I can't
Smoot
remember
Hawley?
the...
Talking about Smoot Hawley?
Yes.
Like, that's
Yes.
pretty much going into like how we're dealing with tariffs at this point. We're fucking up real
Right,
bad.
which I'm sure you're wanting to bring that up at some point. But
We can get there.
Which case is this? Because I might have read about this. I'll just have to kind of reboot my memory because I'm getting old, in case anyone remembers. I'm in my 30s now. I don't remember everything right. So it was Buckley versus who?
Buckley versus Vallejo. The decision by the Supreme Court on campaign finance. Because essentially, unless you can get politicians to not uphold laws or tax codes in favor of corporations, basically taking corporate money out of politics, it would be very difficult to get any of these reforms passed.
Okay, I don't think this is remotely a huge deal compared to Citizens United. Because it was one thing with Buckley versus Vallejo where you had, at least from if I remember this correctly, there was limits with Buckley versus Vallejo on contributions, and there was limits on congressional spending. But it still said that there was protections for the amount of money that you spent. Citizens United largely got rid of most of those provisions. It was largely just form a super PAC, shove all the fucking money you want into politics. Do you disagree with me on any of this? Excuse me.
No, I mean,
yeah,
I want to see where it goes.
So I want to tackle this from a couple of levels, ethically and morally. I don't necessarily have a problem with this. What it comes down to is practicality, and there's a level where I want to piss in both people's shoes. Do we have it to where we have a lot of rich people who are able to throw down a lot of political weight? Yes, to a point where it does concern me a bit, but there is a level, where I kind of want to just take a shot at the, John Q. Public here. Y'all let this happen. And there's a level where y'all let this continually go because I don't think you understand how the system works. In a representative democracy where the vast majority of people get the right to vote and the ability to vote, your vote doesn't really mean that much. Yes, it's one more compared to the next guy or to getting your side where they want to go. But here's the issue. Do you have someone on speed dial or the person that's running on speed dial so that they can actually talk to you about what you want? If the answer is no, then that representative doesn't know about you and for all intents and purposes does not care about you.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got to go back to Civics 101. In the way that we are designed our electoral system, particularly after we've given the vast majority of people the right to vote, is that this is not a system of we the people by the people. It is by we the invested for the invested. This is why shit that is overwhelmingly popular in opinion polls, which has like 65% of, 65% favorability or even higher, doesn't get passed. But things that you actually look at where the money goes, that's got a 50-50 shot or more. Is that when it comes to people with influence and people who have folks on speed dial, those are the ones who are getting what they want. I wouldn't have a problem with this morally or ethically from the get because that's fine for me. What it comes down is that practicality where the average person isn't even in the room. And I take a shot here. Do they want to be? I think they do. But there's also a level where, they kind of made it hard on themselves. They're going to have to try extra hard now to get into the room because they've been out for so long. But we did it to ourselves. We destroyed not only unions, right? You don't even have to take the Democrat approach to this. Most church attendance is down. Most church activism is actually down. You know, you can talk about all the shitheads who are running churches, right? We can talk about the Joel Osteens and all these people that I can't stand and freaking hate. And while they're very politically active, and I will happily get on board with taxing churches, there's the other side of this equation.
Why are you
And
trying
that
to say
is
things to get me on your side?
because you are always on my side. You just don't know it yet. When it comes down to some of these issues, a lot of general church attendance is down, and it's become kind of one of those. There's a term for it. There's actually a couple terms for it, but it's not gentrification. It's the other side of that. What is that called?
I don't know what the opposite of gentrification is.
Where everyone leaves.
Oh, white flight. I mean,
In a way, yes, but I don't want to put it in that regard because that assumes that like white people are the only good people, and that's clearly not the case.
that's who left.
But basically, it's skills flight, right? It's competence flight, it's moral flight, and it's skills flight. What we're seeing here is that the church is still very politically active, but it's run by shitlords, for shitlords, by shitlords. And all of the good people like my aunt, who largely are kind of spiritual, but think organized religion is kind of terrible, Republicans like that, they're gone. Left-wingers who should be involved with the church very, very strongly, people like our good friend Cal Rich, they're not there. They're not the ones grabbing the microphone saying, this is what good Christians should do. They're just not there. They're not in the conversation. And because of that, a lot of our mainstay pillars are either dead, dying, or broken. So, let me go down that list again. League of Women Voters, don't know anyone under the age, I don't know, excuse me, I'm getting like a shitload of text messages right now. Yeah, I don't know anyone under the age of about 55 is a member of the League of Women Voters. It's literally the boomers are the last of the line. Knights of Columbus, the Rotary Club, there's so many of these things that are just kind of in my general area, and you look at them, and you look at who the people are. You might get invited to an event, you go and you see who the members are. Not only are they old, they're super old. Like, some of these are groups that are full up of 80-year-olds, and some of them are groups that it's like, all right, you can find a few people, but they're all 65 plus. Millennials, my fellow millennials, we are the social generation. We are the ones who like to go out and talk and mingle and get involved with each other, unless somehow I missed the memo, because I've only gotten better with that with age. I don't know if y'all did. I don't know if y'all hate the bitter pills, which I totally get if you did. But here's the issue. We should dominate this conversation. We should be able to build out institutions. We should be able to build out a lot of political voting power to do whatever the hell we want it to do, because we should have the skills. We should have the action to be able to just kick ass politically, but we're not. The boomers are still outvoting us, and they lost majority voting 5 years ago, maybe 8. I think 16 was the last time the boomers were the majority voter block. Millennials have actually been bigger, but we're not cohesive. We don't punch. Huge problem. So, sorry to make this a roundabout conversation, as I always do, but I kind of blame John Q. Public on this one a lot. Yeah, you can bitch about the rich people, and I'll bitch there with you, but this isn't a fix on our end. We have to fix this. John Q. Public, Nancy Q. Public has to go out and actually build some shit that works for them, because no one's going to hand this shit to us. Like, they're just not. I think you all know that.
I have to think about it slightly differently, because without people to buy the goods, these people couldn't make the money that they're making. So a lot of the rich people that have the money, I'm not even talking about like just people that are rich. I'm talking about people that are inordinately rich, like billionaires for the most part. Without people, they would never be able to get the money that they get. And keeping the people that are providing their income downtrodden into the, like, one of the main things that bothers me the most is like Walmart keeping their employees' wages low so that they don't have to pay for healthcare, things like that, forcing these people onto welfare while they're working for them. We are subsidizing rich people, while rich people are basically not paying taxes for a lot of this.
Couple of different levels here. If we need to get into the tax conversation again, I will. But rich people not only pay their taxes, they pay the vast majority of the taxes. That's actually true. I kind of hate that talking point, but if we need to beat that one with a stick, we will. When it comes to Walmart, we talked to a lot of these other corporations and things. Yeah, 100%. And there's a level where I can blame Walmart, but it is one of those deals to where they're able to cheat the system.
Well, yes.
So 100%. So let me put it this way. I do not look at Walmart in a favorable level, although they have been a lot better in the last couple of years. Basically, ever since COVID happened, where a lot of their employees found out that they were, what was the term that they got told? They were not valuable workers. What was the term? It wasn't indispensable either, but it was something on that line where they had, it's like, hey, they were asked to come into work. So they could sell, push groceries. What was that term back during COVID? Somebody remind me, because Lethe is drawing error 404 here.
No.
Essential workers. Thank you. Yeah, essential workers. Well, ever since a lot of those workers got told in service jobs that they were essential, we've actually seen their wages go up probably more than almost any other industry. Could be wrong in that one, but last time I checked, they were having pretty good growth. In fact, I think Walmart's had to commit that they have to put. Sorry, I think Walmart now has a company minimum wage of $17 an hour. Don't quote me on that one. Maybe that's the new thing that their CEO has been trying to roll out. But if I remember correctly, they've had a couple of changeovers in the last couple of years. They've had to push for new initiatives. Because if they're not doing that, they're getting outcompeted by like Aldi or Publix is kicking their ass and a few other ones. Target's actually starting to push them out of markets too. I think Walmart's at a very critical point here, and if they go up in flames, I'm not going to cry about it because they definitely deserve it. But yeah, going back to your general question, is there companies that are able to either, some people say cheat the system, some people say load the system, 100%. We don't do anything about it. I've long since mandated that if you're a company of a certain size, or if you just want to have a general corporate minimum wage that's higher than the standard one, I'm all for it. Because there's a hell of a difference between being like a mom and pop LLC because you don't want the legal, you don't want to deal with the legal problems, versus, I'm a multi-billion-dollar Fortune 100 conglomerate, and somehow I still have some of the lowest wages in my industry. A little bit of class warfare from the left would not be unappreciated on this one. And I know they want to talk the big fight, but let's be real. The people who bitch about this are usually people in their basements.
Well, I'm not in my basement, but I am complaining to a degree.
Well, I'll complain with you.
So, like, looking at, like, Walmart per se, the idea that when they move into an area, any of the other people that are selling the same things that Walmart are selling cannot sell them for the same cost that Walmart does. And as Mike's pointing out, he says, studies show that major outcome of the farther wealth inequality is resource acquiring. The wealthy having nothing to do with all the capital they're acquiring, so they end up buying up resources and pushing to privatize and to create more arrival scarcity to drive up demand, which is part of it. And then from what you're saying, when you're talking about wages growing, there's been wage stagnation for a long time. A lot of people wouldn't admit that there was wage stagnation. We're still behind on wages and they should still be going up, but people are still going to say it's too much and it's going to cost more to the consumer.
Oh, so this gets into inflation, if you want to hit this one. And granted, I've had this conversation on your panels before, but if you want me to reboot that for a moment, I can. I can talk about the different types of inflation. I can talk about the ones you want and the ones you don't want, and what we've particularly been seeing. But that's up to you, buddy.
Oh, yeah, take your time.
Okay, well, I just wanted to hit this.
Yeah,
all right, so
take your pick on it.
All right. So a lot of people are like, inflation bad. Yes and no. Inflation bad in certain areas because we have generally in economics, you can separate this into a couple of major subfactors and then you have limited subfactors and then you can literally talk about individualized markets. What the hell am I saying? In layman's terms, there is a couple of different sectors of inflation. Some of them are hard to deal with. Some of them are easy. Let's talk about the ones that you're familiar with. Number one is labor inflation. This is how much This is how much you are paid. This is just the value of people's work. This one has been pretty, I'm not going to say stagnant, but it's been pretty general in that it's usually about 3% person on person every single year over time. But some of you haven't seen that. Of course, 3% out of some of you making $11 an hour at Wendy's is, oh, cool, I got a 15-cent raise. Hooray. Right? That's been the standard for the better part of the last 30 years. So a lot of that hasn't been felt all that well. If you're making 80K, 3% is pretty kind of nice, or it's pretty nice, right? That's the one that a lot of people would like to have. And you know what? As an economist, an economy is demand driven. This is the inflation that you want, because even if you have to pay more for your, goods because you have to pay the guy who's doing it, that's the thing that you can actually mitigate the best. I'll put it in this regard. If it's any kind of major commodity, particularly anything that you produce at scale, giving an increase in wages to people who are like selling beer all the way up and down the line, it's not really a huge deal. If you do the math on it, you're talking about like $1 a case if you're doing it right. Now, of course, companies will be greedy and they'll probably go for $3, but that's not a problem you want. Or I'm sorry, that's not a problem that you have to deal with. What we've been dealing with in the last couple of years is what we call commodity inflation. This is your day in, day out stuff. This is gasoline. This is food. This is a lot of the things that you're going to deal with in your day in and day out. For the better part of the last 30 years, that has been flat zero. So it's not been getting worse, but it wasn't getting better until COVID happened. A lot of people said it was because we printed money. I respectfully disagree. Go ahead.
No, I'm going to say, yeah, definitely it's not because we're printing money. It's literally the supply chain. So many other issues. Like, most people don't understand what causes inflation, but there are a lot of different metrics that cause this.
Yeah, there is. So I'm largely of the supply chain thing. For some reason, the right wingers are like, no, this is a Democratic talking point. I don't know why. This is kind of econ. I don't know. Maybe it's because it's econ 201 instead of 101. They didn't get to that class. I don't fucking know. What it comes down to is that we saw this before the election of 2020. What we saw was that before the election, the first thing that got hit were consumer electronics. And you saw that price spike up in the September 2020 when everybody was locked in their homes, or at least the better part of people were, told, don't go outside, because we hadn't even lifted most of the restrictions yet, right? We were still in lockdown. People were buying computers, people were buying TVs, people were buying iPads, iPhones, anything that was largely something that entertained you, that wasn't something that you had to leave your house for, you could have it shipped by Amazon. It had a 200% increase in price. Not 100%, 200. You were paying 3 times the price for some of this shit. That was the first thing that got hit. And then as we saw people move into these changes to where the following year we started seeing the vaccine roll out and we started seeing people going back to work and we saw, all these things where the Republicans were like, fuck this. Like, we're not making any money. We're going to, open up Florida even without. Long story short, we started seeing gas go up. And so what was it? Within the span of 2021, we saw gas largely go from, I think it was like 190 again. It was really low in some places. Not in California. I understand that. But in a lot of the country, I think at the start of the start of 2021, it was somewhere around like $192. But by the end of the year, it was up to $4 because everyone was tired of being stuck in their houses. And they were using gas like crazy. And they were just going anywhere they wanted to. I took 2 vacations in the end of 2021. I went to Texas in November, went to Florida in December. Just part of the deal. So I was part of that. But that's where that's where a lot of the transportation issues were coming in. And then finally we get to like food. We get to energy. Those are a little harder to explain. Some of that might be a little bit of the money printing. Some of that is probably some of the nefarious stuff that's been going on within the Department of Energy, but also more of just how we were building stuff in the wrong places. Wind is great if you're building it in the Great Plains. Not so great when you're building it in Massachusetts. Kind of the same thing with solar, right? Solar is great if you're building it in Phoenix, if you're building it in Kern County, if you're building it pretty much anywhere from Los Angeles to DFW. Solars are awesome. Some other places, breaks it about, anywhere in the South largely breaks even because you can at least offset your AC bill. People are building it in freaking Minnesota. It's you don't have long enough days in the winter. You have too many cloudy days. Minnesota, stop building solar. A lot of these issues were all tied together so that we got an actual market correction on shit that we were doing wrong. Some of that was inflationary that we had to deal with. Some of it was just shit going belly up and us throwing an enormous amount of money fixing it. If there wasn't COVID in 2020, we were on track for a major recession, probably by 2024 at the latest, because we were doing stuff that we shouldn't have been doing. The economy was getting hot. 2021, 2022 looked like it was probably going to fire off. But it was forced onto us, and it probably did us a lot of favors because it got masked. There's also some problems in the other side of that where we didn't fix some of the problems that we should have as part of that. So anyway, long story short, inflation's kind of a pain in the ass. But that was just commodities. Here's the thing that we've been seeing a lot of.
Before you get to that, is that people's wages already by the time inflation hit weren't keeping up with the cost of living.
They weren't commodities. Let me put it in this regard. Commodities weren't the problem. People weren't pissed about the price of milk and the price of eggs up until when they spiked. And I'm 100% with people on their spike and where there's like, hey, even though things have gotten better on a lot of those things, gas is not nearly as bad as what it was in 22. Eggs right now are kind of going through their thing, but outside of steak, everything's largely back to pre-COVID levels for me. Don't know what y'all are doing, but for me, most of these things are okay now. But here's the other side of it. Asset inflation. This is the one that we've been seeing for 30 to 50 years be at all-time highs. And they should never be this high. Like the average asset inflation in this country has been 6%. What are assets? Assets are things like your car. Those weren't too bad until COVID. But your home values were already going crazy for years. This is why we had the 2008 banking crisis. Homes were gaining value way quicker than the people who could pay for them. And so whenever there was a market correction, what was it? 1 out of 10 households lost their house.
That's kind of where I was at with it. The rent and the housing got fucked. And I want to say that's where people were feeling it the most is rent.
Yes.
My wages aren't keeping up with my rent. I can't keep my house.
So here's the problem. Just straight up. The number one issue we have got to deal with as a country is asset inflation. And the problem is that if you are on the other side of this equation to where you are able to make money off of your assets, you want as much asset inflation as you can. If you're a boomer who's got money in the stock market, or you're a landlord who's got a couple of houses, yada, 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 why the fuck not? Because you're going to make money hand over fist. When I moved down to the ex-girlfriend's place for 6 months, I was able to rent this house out, and I was able to rent it out for 5 times what I was paying for it. I don't say that as a matter of pride. That was the market rate. Now, granted, I had a bonus. I'm pro pet as a landlord. So I got to, make a little bit more off of that. So let's just say it went from 4 to 5. But yeah, that was a fair market price for just one house. And so many other people are doing that. It's one of those deals where if you're on the invested side, going back to that politics conversation we had earlier, you have absolutely no reason to challenge asset inflation because it is literally making you piss loads of money. But if you're on the bottom side of that, to where you're trying to, get an asset or acquire assets, what's the average price of a home right now? Oh, shit. $420,000.
Easily.
Now, granted, deal, we can talk about the problems with that. Some of it's location. Some of it's the fact that we keep building houses that are way too fucking big. dude, I don't get it. Like, there's the average house is 2,500 square feet that's getting built. So in practice, everyone who's building a house is getting at least 2,000 square feet, if not 3,000, right?
Mhm.
On the higher end. What do you do with all that space? If you are planning on having 5 kids, I kind of get it. But the average person, that's maybe we're having less kids than normal, right? The average millennial has 2 kids. The average Zoomer is looking like they're going to have 1 for obvious reasons. Even if you have money, why are you building houses that are enormous in size?
So what I've been seeing, like maybe this is different in the city or in my areas versus where you are, is that you're getting smaller lots or they're building these complexes that they're calling homes that are literally like small condos. But still they cost about what a house would cost, which is not what a house should cost, but what a house would cost.
I'm largely of the idea that it's pretty much this is your only option, because if you're not buying one of these condos, that's basically a duplex, right?
Yeah.
Your only other option is that you have to buy a normal home, and it's twice the price of that duplex, if not 3 times that price. It's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, the only way I think this works at all, and this is why, like, I talked about this on the housing panel that we had on Wix versus in a few other places, I think even here, we need not only political pressure, but we need some serious money going into building smaller homes. Stuff that's anywhere between 750 and 1,500 square feet would be kind of in that ideal range. Something that's basically a starter home for people. But we've got to build enough of them to where we can get the cost down. Because even if we build these things, like people are trying to do the houses that are made out of old shipping containers, people are trying to do these prefab houses, and a lot of these are kind of in that size range. They're flimsy and they kind of suck. But if we build them in the same way that we build these bigger ones, the kind of the conversation right now is that you can get one of these houses for like 20% less than what you can the big houses. And so it's one of those deals where why not go bigger at that point anyway? There's 1,000 reasons why to talk about this, right? There's a skill shortage where we're making it to where there's not enough electricians and plumbers and whatnot, which my generation's fault. We were kind of raised on a bad idea. I'll eat that one. But there's also other parts where it's just it's kind of an economy of scale. If you're going to build a foundation, if you're going to build walls, if you're going to do wiring and all those other things, it really is. It's just better to go big. So what do you do? Unfortunately, I'm not an architect. I don't have a good solution for this. And it's either one of two things. Either A, the market and anyone who's within this system can't figure it out either. Or B, they just keep running the numbers, and every time they do actually run the numbers, even when they try to go out and fix the things that I'm talking about, they can't square the circle. And that might be the case. We might just not have a good solution, which is something we never ever consider as a reality.
Or maybe make it impossible for the wealthy to hoard wealth the way they have been doing.
Good luck.
So, like what was pointed out to me in the 20s,
Sure.
There was a massive wealth gap that got worse in the Depression. Because, of course, when there's a depression, much like what we're getting to now with a recession, the wealthy or the people that already have money can buy the dips, can basically benefit off the people that are suffering and make more money when it comes back. So the tax reforms that FDR enacted in the 30s and 40s pretty much fixed this. We had a reasonable amount of prosperity, and like to the degree what I'm saying is you had a middle class that had the ability to have a home at a reasonable time in their life, have 3-4 kids, have a timeshare, have a mobile home, take vacations, do all the Americana shit that we used to see that we were, growing up in the 80s and 90s. Once the lava curve pulled up, that went down the toilet.
I agree with you on when all this happened, and I agree with you on the parts where at least, hey, we went from one standard to another. But I'm going to revisit that conversation I had earlier, and I'm going to say it was 3 things that destroyed the wealth inequality in the country. Number 1 was unionization. Before before FDR, is that you had Teddy who pushed unions, but they weren't like huge. But FDR basically made it his political campaign for the better part of the first 8 years to get as many people in a union as possible. And that was the Democratic Party's sole mission, is that it was pushing mass unionization. That wasn't really enough by itself. It didn't help a lot, but it was kind of the catalyst. Number 2 was World War II. And it wasn't the tax code. It was just simply this. In 1942, because everyone got put to work and people got shipped off to war and yada, 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 we had in that 1 year wage inflation, labor inflation increased 70 fucking percent in 1942. People went from having basically being destitute to where they were working in a lot of ways more than they would right now, but they were working something on the hour of like 60 hours a week. At the same time, they were getting overtime benefits. They were getting their first examples of what would be the future health insurance industry. But back then it was not for profit. People got a quality of life, but it took a transformative event to where Americans actually had to get their shit together and pick out what they actually wanted and what was going to be worth it. And corporations were able to make a fuckload of money. But the reality is that they didn't have any choice not to share it. They had to pay out the ass because you had to hire somebody who wasn't getting deployed, or you had to hire people who were literally incredibly skilled and tell the Defense Department, no, you can't recruit this person, which is expensive as hell. World War II changed the game for us. It wasn't the tax code. It was the fact that everyone was valuable, and we actually showed it. We paid that. Number 3 was kind of what I said earlier. The reason why this stuck around for so long is that when the war was over, everyone else had been bombed out or was bankrupt. So for the better part of 15 years, we have the benefit of having mass unionization backed by everyone coming back home, recovering from the war, because there was actually a major recession in 46 and 47, where all these people came back and everyone had to shift jobs and redo everything because we had to go from making tanks to buses and airplanes and whatnot. When it was all said and done, you had a public that was politically engaged, politically motivated, but also weren't going to take less. And they didn't. We don't have that today. And I don't know how we get that without a massive catastrophe. This is kind of what I've been pushing for the whole time, is that this is really our fault. Like John Q. Public's fault is that we kind of need to embrace a little bit of the French for a moment here and be like, hey, we're tired of getting the shaft. If you want us to do a damn thing, yeah, you're going to have to pay us $20 an hour to sit on our ass in an air-conditioned office. And if you want us to do anything more, yeah, that's going to be 30.
I'm thinking of a different example of the French, but I vibe with you to a degree on that. I'm thinking much earlier French.
Well, I'll put it this way. I'm very interested to see about the what the ramifications for the death penalty that they're pushing for Luigi now. Because I wouldn't be surprised if people throw some shit on that one.
California is enacting a law that will make it illegal for healthcare companies to just deny coverage. I don't know how that's going to work out. But to get back, we got pretty far afield yet and again.
Sure.
Ooh, trying to remember exactly where it was. Oh, so looking at what our forefathers had before when they worked for a company or whatever it may be with unions, and a lot of them had unions. Those unions afforded them pensions, afforded them healthcare, far better healthcare than we have right now. There were tons of people that had healthcare at the time. So to see that we don't have the same level of benefits that our parents had before us is pretty screwy. And not to even want to bring up the current administration having no healthcare plan in mind for us, and the healthcare plan that we got, or the healthcare that we got from Obama with the Affordable Care Act, is not appreciated, but definitely necessary. Looking at these things, why shouldn't we be afforded those same things, like having a pension that matters and retirement? Like 401ks are hot trash compared to a pension.
Oh, I absolutely disagree with that. 401ks are way better than a pension on every single level.
Explain.
Okay, so pensions are problematic for two reasons. Number one, if you happen to die early, you don't get shit, right? That's a huge issue. That none of that money is actually set aside for you. There might be a clause, depending on what company you were with or what union you were with, to where like they kind of give you a bit of a workaround of that, where they say they'll pay you out a minimum of like $50,000 to your spouse or whatever. Or if you die, your spouse will get like 2/4 or half of that for until she dies or they die, right? That was a little bit of the old system. But largely it fucked you hard or your loved ones hard whenever you died early. Now, obviously, we're not hoping for that, but you know, back during the days when pensions were a thing, the average person lived to 60. This is actually the biggest problem with Social Security. It's not designed for people who live to 80. It's designed for people who live to 60. Completely other conversation, but I will integrate that in a little bit. The pensions are horrible for anyone who's actually part of that institution, because what you're basically looking at here is that you have to take a bunch of money, either set it aside, put it into some kind of investment scheme, or at least just having it in an account to where that person, now you are paying them when they're not working for you, not involved with you, not doing anything with you, to, you know, basically live. Sounds great for that person who is now no longer a part of it, but for that institution, it's a complete pain in the ass. What 401ks actually do is do that process for you, and it's your money. All that money that you should be putting out aside anyway, or that company should be putting out aside, or that union, is now being put out into an account for you in your own way, and it's legally bound to you. And so whether you die or something terrible happens to where you need to like withdraw it early, you can fucking do that. Your family, your loved ones, whoever is your legal guardians, or you know your legally next of kin, they will get that money in full. And generally, it's more money than what you would get for a normalized pension. Almost every time we've done the math on it. Yeah, I'm not pro 401, or sorry, I am not pro pension at all. I actually think it's a good thing we got rid of that.
Mm. A great deal of people disagree with that. I get where you're coming from with that, but I believe there was negotiation possible. There was also means to expand it, whereas 401k playing off the stock market, what you put into it, and also expecting the people that are already operating on the poverty line due to the wage issues may very well end up with nothing and have to depend on Social Security and have no chance whatsoever. I
So
think
this is
pensions
where
were more reliable.
they, in a way, they were, and this is where I want to split the difference with people and say, if you want to keep Social Security, we can shore that up to some degree, because it is, at least it's like pretty much guaranteed, right? And that basically is a government mandated pension. That's literally what it is. But if you wanted to do it right, and you wanted to do it where you had more money and the vast majority would be taken care of, take the 12%. Is it 12%? Let me make sure I got this right. I had to run it again. It's either 3%. It's either 6% or it's 12. I think it's 6. Because it's supposed to be 3 from you and 3 from your employer, or it's 6 from you and 6 from your employer. But I have to look at my base subs. Long story short, take that money and mandate it that it be put into some kind of retirement account. It doesn't even have to be an IRA, or it doesn't have to be a 401k. It can be almost anything that is a kind of a financial, you know, piggy bank that, you know, you just can't touch for a little while, or there has to be provisions for it not to be touched. Mm-hmm. You would be gold. Like, the biggest problem with retirement are the people who have no access to it because it's not part of their benefits package. You have a great retirement if you're working one of these high skill 80K jobs, because you got like 401k matching and yada yada yada. You don't have that for most hourly jobs. That's not a thing. We need to make it a thing. This is where I want to see some of those class warriors get out and actually, you know, do something in their favor. Make it to where, don't put it on the government. Make some room with the right. Don't put it on the government. Put it on the business to say, hey, look, I don't need you to take care of me tomorrow. I need you to take care of me today. I need it to where you are absolutely going to pay me for retirement.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Like, it kind of derailed my thing here. But yeah, I think people need to just say, hey, look, I every job that you work pretty much any kind of time with, a small portion of that, like 3%, unless you're 65 or younger, or 65 or older, yeah, that gets put away. Gets put away in a nice bank account, and it's mandatory. Keyword here, mandatory. Everyone gets it. Everyone should get it. But we don't have that. We've got it where it's invested. You got a good skilled job. You got a good high-paying job. Yeah, you got 401k, and you got 401k matching, and hell, we'll even give you the whole red carpet. But if you're working there in a service job, do you have 401k matching? Hell, you probably don't even have health insurance. All of these low-tier jobs don't have any benefits, and that's what's kicking America's ass right now.
I mean, yeah, before I get to that, everybody out there in chat, appreciate all of you. X-Fister, Rabbit Wombat, Moon, Viceroy, good to see you. I think I saw, Kamikaze out there. All you wonderful people. Appreciate you having you here. And also Changebox, thank you for the generosity. You were too kind. We need to stop allowing these employers to take advantage of employees by giving them the bare minimum and forcing them to have the public subsidize them. Like, I don't know how we get to that point, but that's definitely a big part of the issue.
I mean, how do we get that point? It seems like it's going to take a national catastrophe. I wish I wasn't doomer pilled on this, but it really seems to be. And I wish it wasn't the case. It's like if this country's going to get its shit together, it needs something. It needs something to reset the priority list. I made a post the other day. It didn't get viral by any measure, but it definitely attracted some very interesting attention. And I said basically along the lines of the question was, who's overpaid, right? Like, is there any job overpaid? Who do you think's overpaid? What's overpaid, right?
I don't think anyone's overpaid at this point except for the people at the top, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, who's at the top? Are we talking lawyers? Are lawyers overpaid? Are doctors overpaid?
Oh, no, I'm talking about corporations. Like, when you're talking about the corporate structure, those are the people who tend
just
to be
like
overplayed.
CEOs and chief financial officers, or what are these called? Executive officers, right?
Yeah, for the most part, a lot of them I think are overpaid. Like, when it comes down to doctors, lawyers, so on and so forth, you get paid based on your expertise. A lawyer that doesn't have a great expertise probably won't make the same amount of money as like a lawyer that's working for these corporations or working in show business, whatever. Like, there are certain lawyers that do contract law, things like that. They're going to make more money versus a pro bono lawyer. I think they're probably underpaid. Same thing goes for doctors. There's a huge pay scale for doctors.
Let me agree with you and disagree with you at the same time. I don't think the problem is corporations. I think the problem is capital owners, the actual capitalists. And I say this as a capitalist, for God's sakes. The ability for capital to pay you out money is just incredibly high right now. And this goes back to the asset inflation conversation we were having, right, before. If you have assets, or you're able to turn your money into assets, it is way, way too fucking easy right now to make bank. And until either the asset inflation is broken, which probably will have to be done politically, or we're going to have an economic crash. Either one of those two things are going to do it. Or you allow it to where you get more money just out of the gate so that you can afford these things, which goes to our tariffs conversation, goes to our union conversation. I think we need to attack this on both ends.
All these conversations kind of intertwine.
Are interrelated. Welcome to economics.
No, thank you.
Yeah. Anyway, long story short, I said this. I made this post about being overpaid. And I said, I often debate on if I should have this stance in my inner monologue, but it largely is any job or career that pays you by how much viewership you have or how many seats you fill is generally overpaid. I believe our society cares more about spectacle than it does about substance. The fact that people are willing to spend $100 an hour to be entertained, but cannot be bothered to spend $100 an hour for someone who sits on a jury, inspires a deep level of personal hatred from me. And that's kind of where I'm at. Like, capital is incredibly important and incredibly powerful, and I don't mind if people are able to make oodles and noodles of money off of this level, or having capital. But the level that I think people put up with when it comes to paying for shit that is just makes you feel good, or things that you tend to enjoy to some degree, and I'm going to take a lot of shots at people who are sports fans and whatnot. If you're paying $270 for a stadium ticket for a 2.5-hour game, you're paying $100 an hour for this kind of thing. And, if you got that kind of money, that's great. But there are definitely better ways to spend your money. And at the same time, a lot of the things that I think do matter. A lot of the things that I think are very much hands-on, you should have more vested interest. And granted, this is more in the public space. Whether it's teachers, somebody sitting on a jury, somebody cleaning up trash, a lot of these things that need to be done, we can't be bothered. And I can't rectify that in my head. I can't rectify that morally, I can't rectify that ethically, and I sure as hell can't rectify it practically. I have a serious problem as an American with my fellow citizens willing to spend gobbles and gobbles of money to benefit companies and corporations like the NFL and institutions like that, when something that is far more influential but also far more practical in your day in and day out life doesn't even get the light of day. I'm trying to find a really good example here because a lot of these are charities that I kind of have some issues with. But it does bother me where I'm trying to think of how to put this. I don't think we want to emphasize retail. I do want to put that out there. I think retail is kind of a bad deal. I think that's kind of like just have Amazon or Walmart do everything, but just try to make sure they're paid half decently and just move the fuck on. But when it comes to a lot of these other things like building homes, yeah, we need more people doing it, and we need people who are going to be paid a lot more money to get it done. And we're just not.
So
I know this is a catch-22, but we're kind of really stuck between a rock and a hard place, and it is our fault.
before I go to open, and I hope you'll stick around,
Oh, of
somebody
course.
posted, I would make securities only profitable after a decade and then make the only way feasible to hold money in real estate, then tax that. More than one home, that's paddling. More than one manufacturing building beyond a certain monetary level, that's paddling. Shareholding dividends outpace wages. Promotions and training, you better believe that's a paddling.
Yeah, I get this, but it's all spite driven,
Is
and
it
there's a
though?
level where it really is. Like it literally it really comes off to me as open envy at this point. So let me separate this here because there's levels where I get where you're trying to pick the problem apart, but I don't think you're trying to actually solve the problem. I think you're just trying to make it where rich people just have a harder time, and I don't think that's the way that we solve these problems. And again, going back to what happened back in the past is that we didn't solve these problems by taxing the rich to death. I really don't believe that. And every Western country that seems to try to do this literally just watches their innovation and also their standard of living collapse over an extended period of time. What you have to do is you have to motivate people economically and politically to pull more interest into their own sphere. So it really is one of those deals. I'm 110% behind unions because at least you have more just of a collective bargaining chance of getting more what you want. I don't give a shit if the average union worker is only half as good as the guy who's working for himself. The average person wants a union or should want a union. If you want to work for yourself, you want to be self-employed, go for it. I'm probably in that camp because I don't like to play by anybody's rules but my own. But for the average person who doesn't have that kind of time or have that energy, yeah, go union. Let's
I'm going to
talk
say
tariffs.
the word for the day, kids, is defenestration. Say it with me. Defenestration. Um,
You want to give
please.
me a definition just so I remember what the hell that means?
The second story window, with a heave and a hoe and a mighty throw, we threw them out the window.
God damn it! What did I say about spite politics? All right, I'm gonna wrap this up. Here's what I really want to do. I think tariffs can actually be a good thing, not the way that Trump's been going about it. Although we didn't even get into that conversation. But I'll put it in this regard. We definitely want to have a conversation on getting more jobs in the country. Not just any jobs, but more jobs in particular. Because even if they're not the best jobs, if they are, let's just say mid-level, right? Where they're paying $20 an hour instead of 15. Those are the jobs that we want, and we want a shitload of them. So if it is factory work, even if it's a little bit backbreaking, doesn't have every single thing that you want, hell yes, let's go. Because the thing that I absolutely am convinced that we have lost sight of in the tariff conversation is this. Yes, your goods are cheaper without tariffs. But at the other side of that, how many jobs did you lose because you didn't have tariffs in the first place? I have been absolutely blown away by how many people talk about the age before before we got rid of tariffs, and talk about how there was a lot more equity between all the people, and then once we got rid of tariffs, less equity, and yet getting rid of tariffs was a good idea. I understand if people want to make the argument that, these are not correlated, but I think they actually are. I think we lost. Somebody did some of the math on this. Because we didn't do protectionism and because we outsourced a lot of our manufacturing jobs, today, if we had still all those manufacturing jobs, but, without the automation, the numbers are something like 30 million more jobs.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, and then the question is like, all right, cool. What's that money? What does that turn out to with automation? And this is the kicker for me. This is the part where I'm like, yo, we need to really actually have a real tariff conversation. 7 to 10 million. What does this economy look like with 7 to 10 million more jobs that are in manufacturing, which usually pay better than these shit retail jobs? You might not need a minimum wage at that point.
Well, I mean, minimum wage is a bad concept to begin with. It just allows employers to. So the whole idea of the minimum wage is because they would pay people well below anything they could live off of. So they had to create a wage that they were mandated to have to pay. That should have never been the floor in the first place. It's just they were never going to, unless forced to, pay more. Which is why I don't think this is like what you're saying. It's spite driven. It's like in reality, prying these people's coffers open is almost impossible without legislation.
Okay, so this is where I want to split hairs with you, but I'm kind of getting on the same board with you. Splitting their coffers open is the goal. It's how you do it. Because a lot of these programs that I'm seeing, like you can't own a second home, and you can't do this, and you can't do this, recognize the can't. It's trying to tell people what you cannot do instead of trying to get people to do more of what you want them to do. It's all stick and no carrot. One of the big things that I loved, and this guy is one of my personal heroes. His name was Bill Knudsen. He was a Danish-American immigrant, came over the country when he was 19. Started working for Ford, became the president of General Motors. Ran the American war effort during World War II to build all the shit. FDR called him in September of 1939 after the Nazis invaded Poland because he knew he was going to have to build a war industry. And this dude completely changed American economics for the better because he's like, hey, Mr. President, I like what you're doing with the unions, and I like what you're doing with making sure that you want your workers to be paid. But you're making it where no business wants to work, no one wants to own a business, and you're making it where no one can make a profit. Let's do both. Let's make it where people are unionized, where people want to work, but also let's make it where people can make a fuckload of money. And while it was seen as generally kind of corporocratic, Bill Knudsen helped usher in an industrial revolution in the United States that led to this era of prosperity that so many people dream about. because the American industries during World War II were the most deregulated out of any of the economic powers. The only thing they really had to deal with was rationing from the war board. But they got the most lucrative contracts. They made shitloads of money. Ford, General Motors, International Harvester, almost anyone who was a company at that point made a fuckload of money. But they also paid their employees a fuck ton. Everyone got the piggy bank when it came to that. And that's kind of what I want to get back to, because it's one of those things that we keep running into, whether they're on the right or the left, is we got to stick it to somebody. No, we just need to fix the balance and make it to where everyone realizes that A, we can all make money together. Literally, dude, I'm gonna be fucking hippie kumbaya shit here, but it's true. We all can make money together, but not only that, when your workers make a fuckload more money, they spend more money on all of your other shit that they want. So, literally, the corporations win, you win. Can we get the fuck on with this shit? Like, Reagan was wrong. Trickle down was a mess. Not that it wasn't uncalled for the situation that they were in, but when Bush tried to do it, it was the worst fucking thing possible.
Okay, so I'm going to get ready to head to open, but before that, I'm going to point out one last thing. There is absolutely no reason for the level of homelessness we have in what is considered the wealthiest country on the planet. And the fact that we have that going on means there is some definitional rot in play. So
what are we at right now?
I'm going to say we're opening up the panel at this point to the usual suspects. Maybe isn't going to hell after that at all.
No, it's fine. You guys are welcome. So we're up to 770,000, almost 772,000. It's definitely exploded over the last couple of years, but there's a level where there's a level here where I'm not really that concerned. Let me do some math here just to make sure I'm within the margins of what I'm
really not that
thinking
concerned with the homeless crisis that we have going on. Like, I think
I don't
most
think-
states say it's
okay.
a crisis.
There's only one state that the homeless problem is a crisis, and that's yours.
Oh, you got New York as well. What others? There's a bunch of states where they consider it to be a homeless crisis. I mean, the worst would be in California because you just don't die here. But
right. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I know this is a talking point, but I think it's more of a talking point than anything. Let me do some math here just to make sure I've got this right. We're up to 340 million citizens, and of that, 772.
yeah, even the chat saying Oregon's in crisis for sure. I know for sure New York is having issues. Texas was busing their homeless places as well as immigrants.
This is 0.2% of the population that are homeless. 0.2. If this is a crisis, I don't give a fuck. Like, there are so many other things that I would tackle before this. And this is even with the recent spike that we have from the 2024 numbers. Is it a good trend? No, it's not.
Wait, hold on.
But
Pinpointing exact numbers is challenging due to varying data collection. Countries with the highest number of homeless people include India, Nigeria, and the United States. Why are we on this list?
because you're technically almost if you live in a van, right? And some people willingly do that. Most of these people live in California, where you can literally sleep under an overpass and not die. All right. I'll put it this way: the only part that I will actively go ham on that would solve half of this number is that we absolutely need to have a conversation about bringing back state institutions for mental disabilities. I guess is the way I want to put this.
I just sent you a DM, by the way.
Yeah, sure. This basically bring back the insane asylums. You'll get rid of the better part of half of this number because half of these people literally cannot maintain a household. It's just literally they have huge problems, like they're schizophrenic, whatever. Yeah, huge problem. In fixing that. Change from that to that.
Yeah, Rich even says if it's only 0.2%, then there should be no brainer to fix it. I definitely
No,
know
that's
mental health is an issue, but
Rich. That is Rich. God damn it, Rich. Sometimes you're incredibly smart and sometimes you're incredibly dumb. This is one of those deals where it's like you have literally the vast majority of people who are housed or have some place where they reside, and you're talking about like the very excess margin. You're like, hey, like we gotta have. Oh god damn it, I can't hear myself.
he'll fix it.
Rich, all right, yeah, you can hear me on this one. You've got the vast majority of people are taking, you're like, oh, it wouldn't take that much more to fill it. I'm like, no, this is where it takes so much more to fill it. Because these are the people who have serious problems with being have a house.
We have a state who's already addressed this problem and done a pretty good job of it, and it's Utah. The Utah experiment, they just they looked at the numbers and they said, wow, our homeless population is taking up a lot of resources when it comes to like ambulance services and drunk tanks and hospital rooms and all of these other things, that if we just provided a home for all of these people, like just got an apartment for every one of them, then the original plan was, the original calculation was that it would pay for itself by the reduced use of all those services. But then when they finally did it, they didn't quite meet that goal. It paid for something like 80% of the services, but that was still pretty great. When you factor in the fact that if it's true that it's only 0.2% of the population, then you can get that down to zero just by doing what Utah did, which is just put a little bit of resources into getting this done, and that problem solved. It's doable. They did it in Utah. I don't see why we can't roll it out in more states.
If people want to roll this one out, they can, because this is actually called the Vienna Doctrine when it comes to housing, where the Europeans did this first, and they even proved it with math. Is that certain people's, if you do have public housing, even if you have it as shitty, destructible housing, you can knock out anywhere between. I've seen some weird numbers on this, but it's like anywhere between 40 and 70% of your homeless, you can pretty much knock out of the equation, and you will actually save money doing it. Got no problem doing it.
They had something like 90% of their homeless in Utah doing it that way.
That sounds incredibly excessive. I would definitely have to go over some of those numbers, but people keep coming at me with some of these.
Experiment. It's been a while since I've seen but I think they did it like 15 years ago, and I think there was a follow-up about 5 years ago. And even then it was like relatively negative articles only insofar as the expectations were that it would pay for itself, and it didn't pay for itself. But it's still like money. It's very costly. Yeah. So I mean,
go ahead.
It's just that some of the claims that it was supposed to have hit initially were exaggerated, and so that's fair enough. But it still was an overall successful program.
I'm trying to look at the numbers. Go ahead.
Sorry. It's also worth mentioning that the 0.2% number you gave is the lowest estimate. Like, it's generally more accepted. It's closer to 0.6%. And I realize that still sounds like a very small number until you remember that the U.S. has 330 million more people.
Yeah, that's a million more people. Like, that's double.
So yeah, we're either way, we're ranging between about 500,000 and about 1.5 million people, and that's not something to sniff at, in my opinion. Like, disguising huge numbers with percentages is a great way to make a bad problem look so much better than it actually is. And that's one of the things I hate about using percentages when we're talking about big numbers like this. I prefer to use, number per X population. So if you look at, number of homeless people per 10,000 population in the US, doing the quick math in my head, that's going to be about 150 people, which again doesn't sound like a lot until you remember, oh wait, this is per every 10,000 individuals. That ends up being quite a large. Actually, I think it was 15, not 150, but either way,
I think you're kind of in the same problem.
It's easy
to
make it look small.
It's easy because it looks small, because in some category it is. Now, let me split hairs with you on this one because I'll at least get you. If the number is around 500,000, or at least by the number that I pulled, which you say is the low estimate, yeah, I'm not really gonna sniff at that one too much, because this is literally within the margin of error with almost everything. When it comes to the bigger number, right? Let's just say that we're getting near 2 million, if 6.6 is correct. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna say that's far more of a problem, because it isn't really marginal at that point. Or at least even if it is marginal, 2 million people is a hell of a lot more than 700,000, in both absolute and relative terms. And that gets my attention.
You're right, but I want to point out that even at that low estimate of it's 660, if the population numbers are roughly accurate, even at that low number, 660,000 people is more people than live in most cities in the United States. It's not a small number.
I think it is. In a country of 340 million people, yeah, I actually think that it is. This is actually where I pissed off the right, is that they were acting like, oh my God, 200,000 people are coming across every single month. I'm like, yeah, that's the bigger population than half the cities in the country. I understand. But we've got a lot of wiggle room here. It's not that bad. Please shut the fuck up. And
well, where I can agree with you on that assessment is that a lot of the 220,000 people or a million people, whatever is coming through, a lot of them are a benefit to society. So
potentially, yes.
At the end of the day, we unfortunately make money off of them, whereas homeless people are just screwed. So the number of homeless people is going to be a net negative no matter what. And it sucks that a lot of these people now versus, back in the 70s, 80s are working and living in their car.
I don't disagree with any of that. Part of it is that, yeah, like we're going to have a conversation about how much it's going to cost. If people want to institute the Vienna Doctrine in San Francisco or Los Angeles, go for it. Got no problem with that. But I'm going to be real. This is one of those, you're going to have to take it to, you're going to have to take the fight to the rich folks, because they ain't going to fucking sign on for this shit. And they're the ones who are going to have to pay for this.
Welcome, suffer.
I mean, it depends. I used to work with a homeless shelter for about 5 years in the Dallas area, and we had a lot of rich people that were donating to us for like the projects that we were doing, but they wanted something because they felt, because a lot of them were investing in like the downtown area at that time. It was when people were starting to move back downtown from the white flight that had happened decades before, and they wanted there not to be as much homelessness on the streets. So it was in their interests that we do what we did. Now there was some conflict because our goal wasn't really to get them off the streets. Our goal was to like get them fed and like find housing for them or whatever. But it did just so happen to also meet the goals of people who were trying to like, stop panhandling and stuff like that. And so there were some overlap in interests. Like I don't think the wealthy benefit from the country sort of going to shit more broadly. To some degree, I mean, we do share a planet. They're going to want crime to be lower. They're going to want education to be better. They're going to want that sort of thing. And to some degree, they're willing to pay taxes to get there. Now, whether or not they're willing to pay the kind of taxes one might think it would take, I don't know. Like in a lot of ways, that's an open question. But I think with the Utah experiment, they call it housing first. That's probably where you'll find it most. Housing first is a doctrine that says the reason housing programs have failed in the past is because they have all of these other things that you have to achieve before you can qualify for the housing. You have to prove that you're drug-free. You have to prove that you don't have a criminal record, all this other stuff. With housing first, they don't require any of that. So that means you can be on drugs and still get housed, stuff like that. And what we find is that once they get housed, they're far more likely to then be able to get off drugs and find jobs and stop committing crimes and things like that. So we kind of had the order wrong before. It was like, oh, you need to achieve all the benefits of being a housed person before you can actually get housed. And that made it very difficult to achieve that. And it doesn't cost that much money to do housing first programs because of all of the money that cities save on all these other ancillary services, where homeless people take up a disproportionate amount of resources.
Yeah, I don't disagree with most of that.
Yeah. It's one of those win-win situations that I don't quite understand why we just don't do, especially given all the lip service that conservatives give to homeless people when it comes to foreign aid, where they're like, "Oh, we can't help any other country until we've helped our own homeless, and our own veterans who are on the streets." And then when it comes time to actually do that, they don't want to do it.
Oh, well, of course not. Like, I'll shit on conservatives all day here on this particular part. Conservatives largely believe, until that actually happens to them, that if that your life isn't going the way that you want it, it's because you are morally flawed in some kind of way. Because, well, I'm eating it real hard and I'm eating it bad, but I'm not that guy. And to be that guy, you've got to have something seriously wrong with you.
Oh yeah, did you see that who was it, that congressman on the elevator who there was somebody who was confronting him because he had lost his job to Doge or whatever, and he said, and the congressman was on the elevator, and he basically says to the guy, "Oh, you deserved it," as he got on the elevator.
I wouldn't surprise. It doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, absolutely, there's a tremendous lack of compassion, especially with these evangelicals, who should logically should not be doing that.
Oh, I know. It's almost like a bunch of evangelicals and Christians are nothing that are Christian-like. Shocking.
Yeah.
That's my usual conversation, but yeah,
there's a reason why I can be. Sorry.
No, please go ahead.
I mean, there's a reason I can be friends with you guys. I can happily shit talk the right.
Oh, it was your senator. It was Jim Banks.
Fix your stakes.
Yeah, Jim Banks. He's getting on the elevator. A guy who got fired from HHS or whatever because of the Doge cuts, was complaining, and he said, "Well, you deserved it." He's like, "Well, what do you mean you deserved it?" And then he said, because you're an asshole or something like that. Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Oh, he's the new guy that took over from Braun. Yeah, I didn't vote for this asshole. I didn't vote for the Democrat either, though. Just saying.
Not like a Democrat had a chance in Indiana, but yeah.
Yeah.
Although maybe now, I don't know. Last night's election was amazing.
I
wouldn't
I
hold out
mean,
hope.
I know a lot of people are talking about it. I kind of don't care that much, personally.
I mean, that's like job security right there.
No, wait, you don't care about which? You don't care about the guy in the elevator, or you don't care about the Supreme Court race?
The Supreme Court race in what was that?
Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just it's not on my priorities list, and it's like, all right, cool, they got to win. This is the state that voted for Trump. Yada yada yada. I get it, but
no, it flips the Supreme Court. If the Republican had won, then the Republicans would have gotten. They've had that court for a long time. Democrats got it back just last year, and this was the race that was going to flip it the other way. And Elon sunk $28 million into that race, and also paid people to vote, and gave out $1 million checks to people who voted, who could prove they voted.
So those people were pre-picked because they did that the last time, and then when they were called out on it, they said, "Oh no, they weren't random. We didn't pick people. Like, we had already chosen the people, which were their own."
Well, of course, because they didn't want to risk giving it to a Democrat. Yeah.
Yeah. So they didn't give out 2 million. Essentially, they just have. Yeah. They get. Oh my God! It's like they get the best of both. They didn't even pay out 2 million, but people believe they pay out 2 million. Oh Jesus Christ! It's so. Oh my God.
And people were going to vote because they thought they were going to get $1 million. And then on top of that, they paid $100 per signature for all of their, signatures they needed, earlier in the race. That's how important it was to Elon. He said that the fate of civilization depended on that race.
Well, he's looking at a $28 million loss. Good job, Elon.
Yeah. And the Democrat won by 10 points. That's another thing. These things should be neck and neck. I mean, it's a 50-50 state. I mean, they voted for Trump twice.
What's absolutely disheartening is that even if Democrats come into power, they won't make any laws preventing someone like Elon from gaining this much power again, because the Democrats also get favor out of this.
I mean, if the Democrats actually get off their ass and drop the money that they can on stuff, they can triple fund what the Republicans can. Like, yeah, they're not going to repeal most of this shit for sure.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, even with the corporate backing that Democrats these days get, most of their money still comes from small dollar donations. I think for that race, the average donation was $29 on the Democratic side. Because they get grassroots support to a larger degree than Republicans do. Whereas with Republicans, they'll take $3 million in smaller dollar donations, and then some millionaire will just write one $3 million check to balance that out. Kind of how it works. So, I mean, I don't mean to say that there's not corruption on the Democratic side. There definitely is. But the proportionality of it is not the same. Like, I can't both sides that one.
It's fine. Cool. All right.
So I
What's up?
don't think anybody's interest is going to be in either party at this point, even though I understand there is a issue going on where one side is completely out of hand and the other side is just a piece of shit. I'm more than willing to side with the piece of shit, but I already know that once the piece of shit gets in office, they're not going to shore up anything. They're not going to fix the loopholes. They're not going to fix the problems because they want to be able to benefit from these things as well. And I find that to be equally disgusting.
Well, I mean, this is kind of that investment conversation I was having earlier, is that if you follow the money, and you follow who's actually going to get anything in this country, Republicans are going to help out people who are making a fuckload of money. And we're talking largely about the upper, the millionaire class and the billionaire class. If you're going to get anything from the Democratic class, you better be a member of an HOA, right? One of those folks, probably makes over $100K a year. Your at least household income's over that. If you're not part of that, it really doesn't matter who you vote for.
I mean, it does. And this is where we get to the tariff conversation and the idea that ending up in a recession because of dumb shit trade wars and fucking with our trade partners is going to make the people that are already at the bottom rung hurt even more. And I think it's pretty well understood by anyone that understands economics at this point that the little guy is about to take a big old punch in the gut.
How big it's going to be, I'm waiting to find out. Because they're definitely going to take a short-term punch in the gut. The question is it going to be a long-term one for sure? I just looked at the February numbers. Consumer spending was actually up. It was only 0.4%. But industrial spending, after the first round of the tariff shenanigans, was also up. And the biggest thing that I'm going to judge the success or failure of the Trump administration on. Huh? I don't give a shit about consumer sentiment. They can say that it's in the fucking toilet. Until they actually stop spending their money, I don't give a damn.
Yeah, but if you look at consumer sentiment and then consumer spending after that, one follows the other. One is the predictor of the other. So you can say you don't give a shit, but that's a bit like saying, I don't give a shit when I see lightning. I only give a shit when I hear thunder. But thunder follows the lightning.
That's fine. Whenever I see those numbers or when I hear the thunder, then I will give a shit. Until then, I don't give a fuck.
Also, does that take inflation into account?
Which part?
0.4% increase in consumer spending.
I'd have to double check that. I'm not sure.
Right, because if the price of goods is increasing by 0.5% and spending only.
Yeah, I totally understand it. The fact that it's not crashing. Whenever I've had the media on a full blitz for the last 3 months about how terrible Donald Trump is and how he's going to destroy the economy, and the numbers are still actually in any way positive, I don't give a damn at that point.
In any way positive. But then last year when we were talking about Biden, it was if it's in any way negative, right? Like if there's 15 economic indicators and they're all great except for one, which was inflation at the time, then everything's shitty. But now the standard is if I can find one good number for Trump, then we're fine.
I have to remind you that I voted largely Democrat on the federal ticket last year.
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about.
Well, you're talking to me, so let's not talk about the people who are not in the room.
No, yeah, but hold on. We had plenty of conversations about the economy too, and you were
Sure.
constantly saying anyone who thinks this economy is good is, and then lots of expletives. Like that was every conversation with you at that point. But now
Well, I mean,
you're looking
the
at numbers that
economy
are
great?
considerably worse. Now we're looking at numbers that are considerably worse than last year, and it's there's one good number, so I'm
Yeah,
good.
and I'm going to be an asshole
bad.
here, but it's true. My standard is different. I'm just hoping the floor doesn't fall out with this fucker in charge. That's a
Yeah.
win for me.
How is
Yeah,
that?
I mean, I think
lower numbers.
I think that the leading indicator for what the floor is going to do is the stock market, because those are all of the investors who are making bets on what they think is going to happen in the future. And right now, just like it fell another 900 points today, but then that's why they announced as late as they did today on tariffs. Dow futures dropped another 1,000 after that. So I don't know if that's going to translate into another 1,000 tomorrow in the Dow itself, but that's a good indication that it might. I don't know if Trump's even going to be able to get back to Biden levels of the stock market, before the midterms. I just don't know.
He might not. I'm not really huge on this. Like I was trying to say this earlier. Like the number one thing that I'm going to look at is U.S. industrial spending, because I'm of the idea that if we can actually build all of these factories and the chip plants and yada 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 that are going to make all of these jobs, we're actually going to see labor inflation go up, and if we do, that'll be a win. Shut up, dog. But I reserve the right to be wrong here. I'm just largely of the idea that as long as we don't go into a sliding recession because dipshit McGee over here decided to throw tariffs at the people he signed a treaty with during his last administration, we came out to win. I wish I could have a higher standard than that, but I voted for the other guys.
I just think that a consistent standard from year to year is useful for the discourse.
I mean, if we want to have consistent standard from year to year, then this fucking blows, because we've seen massive increases in industrial spending. I'd have to double check on the consumer spending. I haven't been like huge on tracking that for a while.
I would say that is down.
Let me look.
Unless it's eggs, everybody's buying eggs as fast as they can, no matter what they cost.
Cars are going to be next. It's going to be very expensive to buy a car soon.
Oh,
already is
I was
expensive.
planning on buying one next year, and
It's about to be way more.
I'm gonna have to wait.
You sure you need that car?
Who, me?
Yeah, you.
I mean, it wasn't a needy car, but you move up in life, you want to like go from one car to two cars eventually. I think that's normal, but yeah, I'll just have to wait for 4 years and get two cars together.
You have two cars to rub together. Well,
Yeah, my current car is gonna be a shitbox by then.
Ty doesn't have those consumer spending numbers yet.
Well, usually they only go back 6 months. I'm thinking you guys are going to want to have stuff going back for quite a bit.
So in the meantime, I'm going to play this leaked audio that I just got from a meeting.
It's okay. It's okay. It's not okay, because Tesla is going down, and it's not good.
Mr. Montana, you can do this.
It's bad. It's really bad.
Everything's going to be okay. It's all going to come out in the wash, as they say. Soon everybody will be buying again.
I hope so.
Did you hear that?
I don't.
No.
I'll
So
play
you
it
didn't
again.
share to the stream or to the Discord, so I had to unmute the stream to hear it.
Is it depressing? Is it depressing? If it's depressing, I'm gonna just.
It's I mean, it depends entirely on your state of mind. If, as Ty was saying earlier, you
So there's
are
a chance
ruled
it's
by
depressing.
spite for the particular individuals involved, then no, it's not depressing in the slightest. It's actually quite
Who are the
enjoyable.
individuals?
I'll play it again. Open up the stream in the Discord,
Yeah.
Zephyr, and I'll play it again. Tell me when you're ready.
I'm ready.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's not okay because Tesla is going down, and it's not good.
Smart guy, you can do this.
It's bad. It's really bad.
Everything's going to be okay. It's all going to come out in the wash, as they say. Soon everybody will be buying again.
That hurts me.
There you go.
God, it
He was
reminds me. It
campaigning
reminds me
for-
of a child talking about his school bully to his parent, and they're just like, it's okay, it's gonna be okay, and he's just like, it's not gonna be okay.
It's such a weird world. Like, this fucker was like 3 days ago talking about the end of civilization and stuff. And if things go a certain way, he might turn out to be the strongest soldier for the Democrats.
I'm just glad I
the
finally
next
get
2
to
months,
use
like-
my adamantium trash can emote.
Wait, what did he say that about Democrats?
I'm saying if things go a particular way, I would give it like a very low chance.
Oh,
to be
right.
fair.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But he might turn out to be the strongest soldier for Democrats.
Yeah. I mean, he very well may have clinched that Supreme Court race in Wisconsin. He sunk $28 million into it, but that just made everyone feel like, okay, this election should not be for sale, and they voted the other way. We're talking about a state that voted for Trump just 6 months ago.
No, I'm even talking
And-
about just the general sort of Elon simps that if Trump starts, fighting it out with Elon, then his popularity, like Trump's popularity, might take a big hit.
Sorry, Mo.
Yeah, I heard an interesting theory the other day. That's because people have been curious, like, why is it that there's a gap between Elon and Trump in terms of popularity? Not that Trump is particularly popular, but he's also not anywhere near Elon's level. And it's because someone said, and I think this is a pretty good theory, it's because if you voted for Trump, then you've got that sunk cost fallacy going on. Like, now you feel like you have to defend him because you have to defend the choice you made in the election, which I understand that. I remember that. I remember being a Republican, and it was a long time before I could admit I was a Democrat. Like, it took forever for me to admit that it was a mistake to be a Republican. But anyway, a lot of other people are going through that process, right? But nobody voted for Elon, so they can say, "Oh, that motherfucker! Like, yeah, he shouldn't be there. Like, I hate him because I would never have voted for him." When maybe they would have, right? But since they didn't, it's easier for them to flip and go against Elon than it is for them to flip on Trump. And so that's why this was an experiment. This was the first race where they didn't really run against Trump so much as against Elon. And Elon made it easy because he tried to buy the race. It was very obvious he tried to buy the race. So they were able to cast him as the main opponent, and it worked.
Yeah.
I'm going to say his actions post-election didn't make it much better. Everything before it wasn't pretty. Everything after it has been pretty horrendous when it comes down to messaging. No, I don't agree with people vandalizing Teslas. Like, don't fault people that spent their hard-earned money on a vehicle for what the asshole that produced the vehicle did. And oh no, Ty's running away. What happened to Ty?
I would vandalize
Look,
Teslas just because they're shitty cars.
I only support vandalizing Cybertrucks specifically because they are goddamn eyesores, and anyone who bought a Cybertruck should already have known how big of a shithead Elon Musk is.
Vandalism makes them look better.
Yeah, like regular Teslas, anything that looks like a semi-normal car, don't vandalize those. Okay, give people nasty looks, but a lot of people bought those well before the Roman salute or any of the other bullshit. Cybertrucks, absolutely feel free. It'll probably be an improvement.
Ancom, don't say that. You already are a communist if they find the shit. If you're ever flying out and trying to come back in.
I mean,
Elon Musk, come and fucking find me.
I saw a
No, it's not Elon.
Japanese beetle green Cybertruck, and I want to say somebody did deface that, but it was from the manufacturer.
Yeah, I saw one that was like this like bright purple the other day, and I'm just like, it's an improvement. Not much, but it's an improvement.
I tell you
Only
what,
car that would look better in pink.
I'm a newly minted victim of capitalism because I just got this new puppy, and for the last 5 days in a row, I've been at PetSmart, and they have this deal right now because it's Members Month, where each day, if you spend $50, you get 5,000 like reward points or whatever.
Which is
And
worth like
You'll never have to spend again.
$5.
yeah,
You
yeah.
don't have to spend there for like
But
another 10 years.
I've been like a Pavlovian dog. I've been going specifically because I want to get those points, and like buying all kinds of crazy stuff for the stupid puppy. I didn't realize how many things puppies needed. But
You
yeah,
have
there you go.
you've been caught by the capitalist mind virus that is marketing.
Absolutely 100. I do not deny that any of that. But yeah, I have to get like for one, I didn't realize puppies like claws were so sharp, so I have to go get her nails done. And then I suppose I can
and
find them myself.
and when they're young, the claws grow fast because everything on them is growing fast.
And you gotta
So
buy things
Yeah,
for their
so
teeth,
it's like
'cause
having
they
a
have
cat.
sharp puppy teeth, so you gotta buy things
Yep.
for them to chew on. Otherwise, they rip into your stuff or your skin.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm buying multiple kinds of like toy. I got puzzle toys and I got pull toy, whatever. Got a zillion toys. I got to get a crate. I got to get. I tried not doing the jack thing it's not working. So I'm gonna get a crate. And I don't know. I'm gonna do a bunch of other stuff, but actually, I would try not having a crate. Except she's already like getting underfoot with my mom, who's like a post-stroke, you know,
Yeah,
retiree.
well,
So like
instead of a crate,
no, we're not doing
what
a
you
crate.
might
We're
do
doing an
is
open
get.
air. We're doing a playpen.
Oh, okay.
An
A
open air
playpen's
playpen.
better. I was gonna say if you have a room that your mom doesn't go into, get like one of those fences for the door. And that way, she has a whole room, and it's not so constricting.
We are
but
doing
still
that.
keeps her out from underfoot.
We are doing that right now, but it's the laundry room. The thing is, though, she'll whine unless she's near one of us, like physically near one of us. So I think we're
that's
going to do
fair.
the playpen for that. Yeah.
What breed is she? How big is she gonna get?
Well, I don't know. Mom is about 20 pounds. Her mother's about 20
Okay.
pounds. But I have no idea. The father's a mystery, so we don't know what the
Fair
puppies
enough.
are like. And I still don't know the breed. It's a mutt of some kind.
Yeah, there is
But-
that breed.
Do you know what the mom was? Out of
No,
curiosity.
the mom was a mutt
Okay.
too, and we don't know anything about it. But one of her sister was DNA tested by that owner, the one who picked her up. So like once we get those, we'll know at some point. But
Fair enough.
I think we could be any day now actually that we find out.
It's a
Well,
Democrat puppy,
if the
single
mom's
mom,
only
no
20
support.
pounds, yeah, if the mom's only 20 pounds, chances of of the pup be getting much bigger than that isn't super high. I'd say twice the weight is probably the max you would reasonably expect from something like that.
Well, I did send a picture to an AI that claims to be able to determine these things, and it said Saint Bernard, which there's no way that's
doubt
true.
that.
But yeah.
Yeah, I'm doubting that. Yeah, but I would say, it's probably not going to get huge. So, you shouldn't have too much to deal with. But yeah, a fence or a playpen with, lots of enrichment in there should definitely be helpful. And eventually you kind of need to just let her whine it out because if you keep coming every time she whines, she's going to learn that she can just do that to get attention. And so you kind of just have to let her whine until she realizes whining is not always going to get me attention, and that will pretty quickly cut that out because she'll learn that's not working. So it's as painful, and trust me, I had to go through this with my dog. As painful as it is to hear that whining and want to respond, it's got to be done.
So there's a meme
So
going
where-
around. Before we get too far, there's a meme going around. So quick question to everybody here: if you were to deface a Tesla in a video game, what would you draw on it?
I mean, going for the obvious, I feel like it's called a swastika for a reason.
Dang it. Zephyr, what would you draw
No, I think that's
on the Tesla in a video game? What would you draw on it,
I'm
Zephyr?
trying to think what would be the most offensive thing. That would also be like also be like the antithesis of like a Tesla.
Yeah, in your power wash simulator, you get the high power, the high water power, high pressure washer. What are you going to draw on a
That
Tesla?
doesn't have anything to do with a Tesla.
Yeah, but the Tesla's in the video game.
I would put Steve Bannon rules.
I like how Tiberius is very quiet on this one.
Bitch, did you ask me yet?
Tiberius, what
Don't
would you
smart
draw
off to
on
me. Fucking solar panel.
Oh. All right, Zephyr, you got an answer?
Oh no! Here's a good one. You're right. Abolish the 22nd.
There we go.
I'm not saying anything for the explicit purpose that I'm traveling soon. I need when I come back, then you can ask me this question.
Yeah, because everybody says, draw a swastika on it, and then everybody will think it was defaced, and key.
I mean, if I draw a swastika, it doesn't really count because that's like a holy symbol for me. So
Crux Granada,
fair.
slightly different but fair.
Well, that entirely depends on how you draw it.
yeah, I think if I draw it like tilted at 45 degrees, then I think it should still count. Yeah, I'll go with the swastika. Fuck it.
Damn it.
I'll draw a swastika and say this thing has more angles than this truck.
Sorry, Rich. Quick question: how old's the puppy?
10 or 11 weeks at this point.
Okay.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, at PetSmart, puppy training can start as early as 10 weeks. So I think she's ready to go.
It usually has to do with like vaccine schedules because 12 is the earliest for some vaccines. So
Yeah, that's the next thing I need to do probably next week. Yep, and then get her. I don't know when I have to get her spayed.
Mm.
There's so much to do. It's an investment, stupid puppy.
Yep, having a pet is no joke. Takes up a lot of time and a lot of care. And you can blame Osiris. Make him buy you food.
Yeah.
Oh, was this one of Osiris's puppies?
Yes, it is actually. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, someone said in the chat, Dad went out for a milk bone and never returned.
This is what you get for not keeping an eye on your pets if you're not going to fix them.
Yeah. I think all the puppies were claimed. I don't know. I took 2. Sistrum took 1, and I think there's somebody else who took the fourth one.
I do love his defense. He's like, dude, my dog never leaves my house. Like, fucking someone officially inseminated my dog.
No, we've been
clearly
joking about puppy Jesus. It's a miracle.
Canine parthenogenesis.
Yep.
Speaking of, I learned a new term today that I'd never heard before. Theosis.
What's that? Theosis. Now, hold on. Let me see if I can break that down. So, theo relates to gods, and osis usually is just kind of a generic term for a condition that doesn't fall under one of the other suffixes like itis or oma or something like that. So possibly the
about, like,
condition of
just a
believing
process, like
oneself is a
osmosis?
god?
Yes. It's
I was right?
it's essentially becoming like a god, or
Oh,
becoming
becoming like a
godlike.
god.
So yeah, being divinized to where you don't sin.
Oh, interesting. Weird concept.
Interesting
The
because
entirety of the Q
apotheosis
continuum, I
means
feel, falls
becoming-
under this category.
because there's apotheosis, which means achieving the pinnacle of something.
Yes, Ancom is like the worst genie. He's like a monkey paw and a genie met and became one. And never give him your wishes. I promise you won't get what you want.
Apparently, this wouldn't be the first time there was a parthenogenic marsupial dog-like creature about 12 million years ago. So, maybe it's a recurrent of that particular mutation.
Only in Osiris's house.
Would it still be considered a dog at that point? 12 million years ago?
Well, yeah, that dog-like creature. It was a marsupial, so it was definitely not a dog. Okay. Joking, but yeah, it's just funny.
So yeah,
It flew
Rabbit
right
put
over my
the
head.
full definition. Theosis derived from the Greek word theosis, literally means becoming God or divinization.
I'm just waiting for my chance to become a demon prince, okay?
That would be the opposite of that word.
I'm pretty sure that's apotheosis.
That would be
Yes,
it.
it is in 40K.
From Jack, that would be a divergent, convergent evolution.
Yeah, not a mutation, convergent evolution, but yeah.
Yeah, it was just more.
I mean,
Orthodox
apotheosis
nonsense.
literally means deification, usually of an emperor or royal. So, like, believing that basically it's the concept of a god king, that sort of thing. That's apotheosis in the real world sense. I'm not sure if that's what it was when you were talking about 40K.
So what would the antonym of theosis be?
Uh,
I mean, in Latin, the opposite of something is usually just you add an A or an anti in front of it.
yeah, well, I'm not sure if that works.
Yeah, it would be atheosis
Here,
or
just because it's
anti-theosis.
Anti-theosis might be good, but like I think in this case, if we're thinking about it in the opposite as like meaning the opposite thing, so rather than becoming a god, either a god becoming a human or human becoming something that is farther away from a god, so like a demon or something like that. Depends how you want to interpret the
I would say
term
atheosis
opposite in
is a
this case.
god becoming a human.
Infernotheosis, that actually sounds metal.
Pretty sure that's just being burned to death.
Works for me. Yeah, that is definitely immolation. And we got from
All right, there's a
Windows to
term.
Infernos. Please, Rich.
Apaco conthose. Apaco locuntose, which means to turn into a pumpkin.
We needed a. Of course, we needed a word for that.
Yeah. That would be the opposite of turning into a
This
god,
sounds
I
like-
should think.
This sounds like a Mexican curse.
Yeah.
How do you spell that? What was that?
Well, I can give it to you in the Greek. Hold on, I'll
That's
paste
fine.
it to you.
Belaboring my pumpkin.
Fucking hilarious. Like, I'll give it to you in Greek.
The fact that there's a Greek word
Yeah,
for it is
we're
bonkers.
doing some pretty heavy pumpkin belaboring this evening.
Yeah.
We got nothing better to do on a Wednesday night, I guess.
I mean, I was just
Okay,
thinking of the saying
so
that if you don't get back by a certain time, you'll turn into a pumpkin.
Apakalo Kunthase, maybe?
apocalypthosis, I think, would be.
Yeah, there you go.
Certainly never heard that.
It's new to me.
I mean, obviously it's alluded to in Cinderella, right?
Oh, did you ever get those numbers, Ty? Since we got so far off.
Yeah, I did. We had quite sizable increases during the Biden years, for sure. The problem is we won't have the numbers for the first Trump year until maybe this time next year, because we don't even have the 24 numbers from what I've got here.
Yeah, because
I
assume that consumer trust was pretty high during the Biden years.
I don't think they were, but trust and spending are two different things, which is why I was kind of arguing with Rich earlier.
Okay, so I looked up that word in the Greek, and it looks like it translates to decolonization.
All right. Apparently, he has the communist version of Google search. Got it.
Oh, wait, hold on. No, I misread. It was decolocalizing. My mistake.
Yep. Okay. He's got the communism filter on. I love you.
But
Tom. Never
decolonizing
change.
only meant removing your large intestines.
We got here for a
didn't hear
reason. That reason.
You didn't hear my joke.
Oh, I heard it. Oh, jeez. So, how are you feeling right now, Ty, with the direction the country is going at the moment?
I'm mortified, but if it comes out okay, then I'll live. I just, I don't know what's real from what's not anymore, because anytime I talk to half the experts in the media or I listen to a fucking news report, it's doomsday. And then I actually look at the numbers and it's like, all right, well, we got a delay, but I finally got February's numbers and it's okay. It's not good. It's not great, but it's okay. And I'll take okay over doomsday.
So there was something that I saw recently, and like on top of other news that I've received. The first one was that there's a big uptick in Russian troops basically refusing to fight.
Yeah, I've heard that story.
Isn't that like the
3
third
times.
time it's happened?
I mean, every time.
Yeah, I've heard that story 3 times since this war fucking started.
The fucking Ukrainians take the Russians and then send them to Europe instead of just forcing them to fight for them on the front line.
And then the other thing I was looking at is that U.S. Manufacturers are trying to talk Europe out of not buying our weapons.
Well, that's not going to happen. Like, if the United States kind of pisses in everybody's shoes, there's no way in hell we're not going to be able to get everybody to buy our stuff still.
The thing is, the same strategy that the U.S. is using right now. Why would Europe then want to trade with the U.S.? Like, what if they use a similar strategy? Then that leads to them making their own weapon. So
I put it in
the U.S. can't really criticize that.
Half of Eastern Europe right now is talking about getting nukes. So, like, this is not a good deal. And apparently, I just found this out today, is that the Trump administration, even without leaving NATO, is going to pretty much make it to where we won't be a functional member because he's wanting to give up the Supreme Allied Forces Europe rank and commander or just to NATO. And it's U.S. law. We will never, ever give U.S. troops command to anyone else ever again. So we can't functionally be members of NATO if there's a German general in charge of it.
What? So
I just find the fact that, like, first we tell Trump wants to tell NATO, pay for yourselves, and then once they're like, okay, fine, we're not gonna be, we're gonna look to make ourselves less dependent on the U.S. for defense. They're like, wait, no, not like that.
Yeah,
just
it's like everything in Trump 2 has been like, oh, anyone who remotely spied at me during Trump 1, yeah, I'm just gonna fucking piss in your Cheerios for the rest of the year or for my entire time.
So the headline
president.
is U.S. officials object to European push to buy weapons locally. And U.S. officials have told European allies that they want them to keep buying American-made arms amid recent moves by the European Union to limit U.S. manufacturers.
Well, they will whenever World War III starts in Eastern Europe. They'll buy all of it because there won't be enough to go around.
And from what I'm understanding, even when it comes down to aircraft, a lot of other countries that buy U.S.
conversations about.
Go ahead.
There's a conversation on a lot of countries backing out of the F-35 program now.
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah, I mean, after Trump spent pretty much his entire first term talking about how Europe needs to be less reliant on the U.S. for defense because we don't want to pay for them, Europe was like, okay, so we need to start building this shit ourselves and not relying on the U.S. And now that they're actually doing it, we're like, wait, what? I love how often the U.S. says and does shit, and then they're surprised when they get
honestly,
lashback from that.
To be fair, I think it's like the weapons manufacturers that want that. Like Trump, I don't think wants that.
Well,
Trump doesn't give a
obviously.
fuck.
So,
which is
from
weird
the chat
because
for
he's.
Ty, it is an attempt to strong arm. They are going to say that we need help. America says you have to pick American leaders. This gives a false sense of authority. It's called manipulation, Ty.
Wait, what? Run that by me again.
It is an attempted strong arm. They are going to say we need help. America says you have to pick American leaders. This gives a false sense of authority.
We already have it though. Like we already have it in the code. The the commander of NATO is going to be an American general, and he's wanting to give it up. So I don't know how this is strong arming. This is literally just saying, "Fuck it, we don't care. We out, bitch. Bye." Like there's nothing to gain here.
Hey, thanks for the raid,
This is the Americans. This is the reason for the American response.
Because it causes capitulation.
I can't square that circle. Like the American response is largely Lockheed Martin and company going, "Oh well, we would very much like it if you keep buying shit from us." And the Europeans were like, "Oh, stick it up your ass. Your president's a retard, and we're not gonna work with people who elect a retard. Thank you. Bye."
Yeah.
I put this on backwards, I think.
Giving a shout out to Gibbs. He is great people. Check him out. Thank you again for the raid. I mean, he is great people.
Okay.
Like,
I guess.
I mean, in terms of total mass, yeah, he's great.
There it is.
Fat jokes, hooray!
Hey, I'm also. I think Gibbs and I are pretty on par as far as weight is concerned. So I have no qualms about making fun of him in that realm.
Well, you may be in the same weight class. I don't know.
Hell, I might actually be heavier, 280.
I don't know. I will be right back. I gotta go test something.
It's also that even after the Trump admin, who knows what will happen, of course. So the reputational damage and skepticism, the U.S. intentions will be questioned long after Trump. And this is a problem we're going to have to deal with. So, like, definitely we have lost trust in the global stage.
As I repeating it for the nth time, the problem isn't Trump. The problem is roughly 50% of the US population that wants this shit.
No. They don't want this shit. They want all the shit that Trump
No,
lied
they
about.
literally voted for what is happening to NATO.
No. They are voting for what they believed was going to happen, which is not this.
I beg to differ. Like, I think they literally want this.
I mean, this is
they
a
were playing
classic
along.
case of all politicians lie, except for our guy. Oh wait, he lied.
No, they knew he would lie. They knew he would go much worse than what he said. They wanted this. That's the fucked up part.
I don't know. I feel like this is.
They were playing along.
I feel
They
like
were saying,
we should not be attributing to malice what could be adequately explained by ignorance and/or stupidity.
Sure, both are resulting in equally bad things.
I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying the motives here are not. You and I are disagreeing about the motives of what caused people to vote the way they did.
No, so here's where I am. When Trump was saying all that extreme stuff during his campaigns, they went along saying that he's lying, he won't be that extreme, while like silently thinking to themselves, in fact, they not only want what Trump is saying, they want it worse. And so now it's happening, and now they're happy because not only is Trump delivering on what he said, he's delivering to a much worse extent, which is what they wanted. And I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about the other half of the country. The half that voted for it. Sure, you'll find like one or two people, like, okay, when I say one or two people, like there's probably a few million or a few 100,000 that might have come around. Most of Trump voters are not happy, they're exhilarated at everything that's happening right now. That's a sad fact.
Yeah, but I don't think that the tipping point voters, right, the ones that decide the elections, I don't think they're particularly happy with this.
I had this conversation with Tyler, and I don't know if you guys ever chat with him a lot, but according to all the polling that he's looking at, like moderates are actually very happy with Trump, and Democrats are sinking themselves in a hole.
Yeah, that's not true.
Yeah, you believe him?
Yeah, I do. He's been consistently right for the entire time I've known him. He's been right more than anybody else I've actually talked to.
I just was having an argument with him about whether or not there would be a landslide in Wisconsin, and he was on the wrong side of that one.
I'm not saying that he can't be wrong. I'm saying like the actual error rate.
No, I just mean if you look at his Trump's approval, he was 12 points above water on Inauguration Day. He's now 3 points underwater. So it's been a 15-point shift since Inauguration Day. Like his approval is going down steadily.
Isn't that what we've seen under the last fucking 8 presidents now?
No. You can't find me one president that's dropped 15 points in 6 weeks.
Yeah, it just keeps getting worse and worse. That's not my point. That wasn't my point about the severity. It's my point is like, what? Ever since Bush, it's like once you get inaugurated, that's the highest you're ever gonna fucking see, and then it just consistently goes down.
Yeah, well, yeah, sure, but it's happening faster under Trump.
No, but Trump is also doing things more severely and
what
extreme,
I mean is, it's not the moderates don't like him. What he's been doing, and they especially didn't like this latest stuff with Hegseth and like all of the with that national security blunder. Even 60% of Republicans think that was like that's a really bad problem. For Trump.
Is it going to be enough to change anyone's vote?
Yeah. So far, special elections, 15-point shift, blue shift in
one special election.
No. In 15 of them so far that we've had this year. Average 11-point blue shift. Okay. But in the earliest ones, like the January ones, it was like a 3 or 4 point blue shift. But the ones this last month have been more like a 15-point blue shift, including in those two in Florida. Those are both
Can't wait.
15-point pollutions.
Can't wait for 26. It'll be definitely very enlightening.
But also not just 26, right? Like I think there's a chance it could be like right now. There was just a vote in the Senate. Did you see this? They just voted to declare that we do not have a state of emergency with Canada. And therefore, Trump doesn't have emergency powers to start a trade war with Canada. And that passed.
Cool.
4 Republicans voted with all Democrats for that to pass in the Senate. And if it were to pass the House, then we wouldn't be able to raise all these tariffs against Canada. But and indications are it would pass in the House if they were to have a vote. It's just that they did a procedural trick where the first day of Congress it lasts for 2 years.
Rick.
So that
sorry,
means
Rich.
you cannot.
I don't know why I said Rick. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I have a coworker named Rick, so that just slipped out. Here's the analogy I will use. Right, we are playing Paralympics. The other team are actually Olympians. Like you were playing on wheelchairs, basketball, trying to score a 6 feet high basket. Those are motherfucker NBA like Bryant and shit. Like they're 200 points ahead. Like by the time the game is over, like damage will be done. What you're saying about Senate and everything.
They're doing a lot of damage, but it's not because they're incredibly competent. And that's
they're
the problem.
competent enough. They're competent enough.
The House margin is small enough to where if you can flip the House at some point, then you can stop this trade war. Now you have.
But until the House is flipped, like Republicans might vote with Democrats on 1 or 2 things. Like until the House is flipped, like this will continue. We can't celebrate these as victories.
Yeah, but that's my point. I think one of the reasons why Democrats are doing so well now in these special elections is because there are a lot of people, especially in the business community, who don't want this trade war to happen. And now the Senate just sent the message that the only thing stopping this trade war from being prevented is the House. And the House is like, you need like 2 or 3 Republicans to flip in order to pass something like that in the House. So they're going to use procedural tricks to stop that from happening. But what I'm saying is now we have a very concrete goal that the business community can achieve just by flipping the House.
So I understand what you're saying, and obviously we can't really do much until 2026. But until then, I think
we can. There's a non-zero chance that we flip the House before 2026.
Sure. But I guess like I'm just black pill to the point, at least to the point that I want to. While these small victories are good, there's nothing to celebrate essentially, right? Like
I want to restate what Zephyr said slightly differently. There's nothing we can do electorally until 2026. That is assuming no special elections come up. Electoralism is not the only way in which we can make change.
Yeah, essentially, I guess just to finish off my point, essentially what I'm saying is I don't count these as something to take home, like sure, fine, the Democrats won a few special elections, but there's nothing to write about. Until the House is flipped, there's very little that I really, care about. Like actual results wise, I don't think it's going to accomplish much.
Well, okay. So let's take this Supreme Court race that just happened. They're about to rule on the Republican attempt at a gerrymander in that state. Had the Republican won that seat, Republicans would be in charge of the Supreme Court in Wisconsin, and they would be able to gerrymander the state. Now they can't. So that right there might determine control of the House.
Right. Again, I'm happy that these things are happening. But sorry, there's an echo. I'm retarded, so I can't talk when I hear my own voice. Apparently, that's a sign of high IQ. If you can talk while hearing your own voice. Yeah, I'm obviously happy that these things are happening, but I'm just not gonna make any conclusions based on this to basically any degree until it results in a sort of like a good electoral victory in the House or like some kind of major.
Sure, but I
Hey.
feel like if you're saying I don't care about X until Y, then you've made a conclusion. You've just made a conclusion in the other direction. And I think
Why
that
is
one
it-
of the
No,
challenges
it's more like
Democrats are going to have, I think one of the challenges Democrats are going to have is that people will feel so helpless that they won't bother to go vote or campaign or invest themselves in any future election because the past election has broken their heart so much that they
Okay, fair
can't
enough.
like stand to get into the game.
Fair enough. I agree with that point that yeah, for real, we should not lose hope in that sense.
Right.
I guess I was just kind of relaying my personal opinion towards this thing and
Of
felt
course,
like this is what I felt like this was like the general feeling around the nation. I hope.
I thought that too until the February specials started coming in, and I started seeing these big shifts. And I kind of feel like in Wisconsin, Elon really did everybody a favor because he sunk $28 million into that race. He started buying votes, like literally handing out $1 million checks, and then paying $100 per signature. Those three things
How fucked up is
made
this?
everyone
It's
feel
only
like he was
28
buying an
million.
election. Yeah, two people
Motherfucker
got
should
$1
have at
million.
least got like demanded like 100 million, 200 million out of it.
Huh?
Wisconsinites are fucking cheap ass bitches.
Oh yeah, yeah. But he personally sunk $28 million into this race, and that made people in Wisconsin feel like a billionaire was trying to buy their election, and that pissed him off. And so the state that voted for Trump just a few months ago, just now voted by a double-digit margin for the Democrat in this race, and basically flipped
So
the Supreme Court for the next 5 years. Well, at the very least, for the next 3 years, is going to be in progressive hands.
all right. So I actually want to I want to bring something else into this, which is how much do you think this will impact the Democracy Project's declaration that the U.S. is now either a weak democracy or an electoral autocracy?
Thank you, Ancom.
Because that's the way it's been. What they've been saying, because their report data that's currently released only goes through 2024, but the person who runs the project has been making some pretty loud statements about the direction of democracy in the U.S. So I'm curious, this change in the Wisconsin Supreme Court, what effect, if any, do you think that will have on the sort of metrics they look at when making these sorts of reports?
It'll protect voting rights in that particular state, but they're one of 49. They're one of 50 states, so I think we're going to continue to backslide. I think even if we elect a Democrat in the next election, we'll continue to backslide for a while because these things have momentum. It's not easy to turn it around again. But I'll put it this way: I think this election. Elon said this election would decide the fate of humanity. So, like, he thought it was pretty important because of a lot of the sort of legal issues that are crawling for the state in Wisconsin. And when you think about it, Wisconsin is one of the 3 tipping point states, right? So, it's not just that they're 1 in 50, but they're 1 in 3 states where the direction that they lean decides presidential elections. So I would say they're more than 1/50th of the country in terms of importance, but they're also still very much in the minority in terms of importance. Like, I would say, if anything, we're going to continue to backslide, but maybe slightly more slowly. Instead of backsliding 10 miles an hour, it'll be backsliding 9.5 miles per hour. Like, it won't be that much of a
Okay.
difference.
So
gotta
let me
I wouldn't
rephrase it this way. Let's go ahead and assume that the U.S. does somehow flip the House and it becomes controlled by Democrats,
Right.
either on or before 2026, right? With all of the shit that Trump has been doing through various executive orders and other actions, do you think that a Democratic, even a House, let's assume that the Senate remains pretty much as it is. Do you think a Democratic House will be able to do anything to actually, well, be able to
Yes.
versus be willing to? I should clarify that, since we've seen Democrats frequently not use the power that they ostensibly have to make changes. But do you think they'll actually be able to do anything to curtail the egregious abuses of power that Trump has been exhibiting over the last couple
What
of
they
months?
can do is they won't curtail like his executive orders and stuff, but what they would be able to do, well, they'd be able to do several things. One thing, they could join the thing that the Senate just did, which is they could stop the trade war. And there's a lot of like, this is not even something that they need much courage to do, because the business community is going to want them to do it. So this is something that's very much in their own self-interest to do, which is to stop this trade war. The minute Democrats have the House, they'll be able to do it because it's already passed the Senate. Number one. Number two, this is probably more important, is that all executive orders can be reversed by a future administration. So the only way for Trump to make these things lasting is if it gets passed by the Congress, if it has statutory authority. Because once it's statutory, then the future president can't do anything about it. They'd be locked in. That would be a disaster. There's a lot of like critical language that he's trying to put into a budget that he hopes to pass either this year or next, where if that passes, then yeah, we're permanently fucked. Like, not permanently. I mean, a future Congress could undo it, but it would require a Democratic trifecta, which means it would stay in place for a long, long time. And you could do a lot to quash voting rights with that kind of legislation. There's a lot you could do. So if the House is safe, I'm going to breathe a sigh of relief over that, because it means that all the shitty stuff that Trump's doing now, while it'll still leave lasting scars, like economically and socially and all these other things, at least all of those executive orders can be undone.
I'm going to take off. You guys have a
yeah.
good one.
Okay, fine.
What?
Lethy, I have a question for you
Well,
after.
I was
Like,
trying
I mean,
to-
this is Demon Rap Power. This is just Demon Rap Power Hour. I'm going to let you guys have at it. All right.
Well, no. So, like in an annual report on the global state of democracy, it was shown that essentially America's democracy score is dropping and moving into the state of autocracy. Do you agree with
I
this
personally, I don't
assessment?
put too much.
I don't take much in that. Like, these are the people who've been labeling us as a flawed democracy for the last fucking 15, 20 years. And I just
Different
talking about the
organization,
economy.
different standard of determination. They don't. This is not the same people who changed it to flawed democracy. They have a 5-point scale, which is liberal democracy, electoral democracy, gray zone, electoral autocracy, and closed autocracy. And like, even if you want to say that like the U.S. was an electoral democracy as opposed to a liberal democracy, slipping into any form of autocracy is kind of a big deal. And this is coming from, literally thousands of academics who, do this kind of analysis for a living, and literally millions of data points. So it's, this isn't just, some random determination. Like, this is backed by pretty significant data.
I'll put it this way. I'm not gonna go along with whatever the take is here. What I will say is this: when it comes to Trump and the Republican Party, is it autocratic? No, but there's absolutely not enough pushback in the Republican Party to half the shit that Trump does.
Well,
It is very much a cult of personality, and there's a level where he's getting away with shit that he shouldn't get away with, and Republicans shouldn't enable it. Democrats are kind of the opposite side of. Say what now?
Autocratic shit.
I mean, this doesn't make it autocratic. Like, the problem is that they have the power to do something. They just fucking don't. Like, if you cede your power, does it innately make you an autocracy? No. You're just not using your power. You're being a bunch of little cunts. Which is my problem with Congress for the better part of the last fucking 12 years at least, is that Congress likes to bitch and moan but not do a damn thing about anything. Anyway,
for you after this round.
yeah. Anyway, long story short here, is the United States sliding into autocracy? Not in the way that I'm seeing it. What we're having a problem with is that, yeah, the executive's getting too strong. I've been saying this for fucking way too long. If you want to say that it's leveraged, if you want to say that certain checks and balances aren't working right, all agreed, but 90% of this is the people that are supposed to use their power don't fucking do it. The courts in the last 2 administrations have finally started throwing hammers at people. But it's up to the prosecutors to actually fucking make that happen, and the Democrats are incompetent prosecutors, and the Republicans are fucking witch doctors when it comes to rehabilitating people socially. I don't know how the fuck they do that shit. So yeah, I can't wait to see where this next round goes. But yeah, not autocratic, just waiting for a Congress that actually can bother to get off its ass.
Well, I just
Anyway,
wanted to
I'm done.
sprinkle a little bit of seasoning salt on this. The U.S. has been added to global human rights watch lists.
We're literally disappearing people for political speech now. Like, this is a thing that we've started doing blatantly out in the open.
The thing
Are we talking about?
I would say that
Yeah.
I don't put too much sauce into that factor, because it's like it's very much a sliding scale, to the point like 1 to 7 is like, this can happen in any country, like with a slight authoritarian tilt, and then 8, 9, and 10 are like massive, like actual Hitler shit. There's like, if you're between 1 to 7, it's like, sure, obviously it's slightly more authoritarian, but yeah, it can happen in any country.
Are we talking about disappearing the foreign national?
No,
is that where?
humans watch
Foreign nationals. It has happened to at least half a dozen by now.
I'm simply talking about the human rights watch list part.
No, I got you, Zephyr, and I thank you for at least agreeing with me to some point.
Just for the record, on the Economist list, which is I assume what Ty was referring to, we've been listed as a flawed democracy for 9 years at this point.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. But our score is 7.85, and the threshold is 8, so we're really close to being an actual democracy.
Right. And then going to that other thing is, yeah, when it comes to disappearing foreign nationals, that's largely a matter for the Department of State. And while we haven't exercised that ability for a while, at least in the high profile case that a lot of people have been talking about with the student that was supporting Hamas, fucking deport that son of a bitch and don't look back. But that's my take. Anyway, you'll have a good one.
He wasn't even supporting Hamas. My God. You're just buying right into the propaganda that they've been putting out about these people, and it's infuriating.
But again, I hate to be a broken record on this one. I want to know what Dearborn thinks about all this. You know, the administration they were protesting wasn't doing this to them.
If there's one group of people that have extreme schadenfreude for, it's the Dearborn Muslims.
Yeah, I mean, they're being punished by their own choices for sure at this point.
Like, call me whatever the fuck you want. It's my feelings, it's my emotions, man.
I only have so much Schadenfreude to put out for a year, and I've already reached quota.
I mean, I don't have Schadenfreude for them, honestly, but I do feel like, they were warned many, many times what the consequences of that vote would be.
They were one-issue voters. That's the point.
Yeah.
They were fucking one-issue voters.
Well, I'm a
the
one-issue voter.
Most fucking obvious rug pull in history.
Yeah, it was a rug pull, though. Yeah, they did this to themselves, no question. Although I'm a one-issue voter, so I can't say much about being a one-issue voter.
I have more sympathy for the Latin Americans, the Hispanics, than I do for them, because for them it was a slightly more gray area than it was for Dearborn.
Was it though?
Well, there's still plenty of Hispanic voters that will stand by their vote because they feel like, hey, I earned my citizenship, they didn't, so they can go back. Like that attitude does exist in the Hispanic community among a lot of people.
But there were Hispanics, like they were interviewing Hispanics at Trump rallies, and they said, "Yeah, I want my relatives deported. They're here illegally."
Right.
So I give them a little bit of that leeway, I guess. Obviously, I have Schadenfreude for them too, but that little bit.
There still are plenty of them who will say, "Oh no, he won't deport my family. He'll just deport the criminals or whatever." And then when it happens, they're shocked. But yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. I don't really even know what's going on with the deportation numbers. Last I saw, Trump's deportation numbers actually weren't particularly high. Yeah, he's trying to be more cruel about it, like filming people like in handcuffs and stuff like that. But I don't think the numbers of people that he's deporting are actually that high. He's just doing a bunch of stunts to make it look like he's being tough.
Well,
I found out over this week of research, I found out that the Muslims that were deported post 9/11 were deported with more sort of legal methods than this.
Yeah, that's what I was
I'm
going to
sure.
say.
They
It's
weren't
mostly
given
the
like
illegal
due process per
methods
se. Yeah, but even they were like treated more legally than than the current atmosphere. But
I'm saying, like, even if they didn't get the due process they deserved, at least it's not as openly illegal the way they were treated. So
yeah, like when
I'm
you
not gonna say
have
that's good.
when you have the administration blatantly defying court orders, that's literally the definition of a constitutional crisis.
Leith, you have a question?
And the fact that more people aren't like
I'm here for your
massively bothered
question.
by this has been bothering me. Sorry,
What are your thoughts on the longest filibuster in American history no longer being associated with Jim Crow? Do you think you've lost something? Do you think you've lost that?
No, we gained something. So it went from a Jim Crow, well, an anti-civil rights filibuster to a black dude filibustering to raise awareness. So, like, I'm gonna say this.
Yeah, it wasn't even technically a filibuster because he wasn't speaking on a specific bill. He was literally just like ranting on the floor and bringing in people to speak. Not that it was a bad thing by any means. Like I watched some of it, and he's saying things that should be fairly obvious. What bothers me is that more people aren't. I don't know. More people aren't more up in arms about the flagrant abuses of civil rights, or rather the flagrant revocation of civil rights without any form of due process.
So Trump released numbers, I think yesterday. 28,000 people have been deported so far in his administration. So did the math on it. That's 560 per day.
It's pretty high, but yeah, there's been
That's
worse.
pretty low.
It's just the nature of it.
I don't have numbers to compare it to because, like, it seems high, sure, but it may be higher, maybe lower.
No, that sounds like a low number to me. Like what I'm saying is, I don't think he's really been all that effective yet. At least, I mean, maybe he's ramping up. But
he's having to skirt the law to be effective.
That's
right,
and he's willing to do that.
This is where I agree.
So if he were if he were following the law, it would probably be like 2 a day.
But do you think part of that's because the type of people he campaigned to go after, they're just not as much? So like he's like, okay, now we have to like widen the net of like who we're gonna like.
Dude, who had heard of Trend
widen the net was always his plan.
Who had heard of Trend by January?
I did, but I talk to Gibbs all the time, so
you got to keep in mind, like Obama deported 2.5 million people. Like Obama deported way more people per day than Obama deported 1,000 people per day. It's like twice what Trump is right now.
So when we are doing comparison with Obama, what I will say, I'm not sure if this is exactly the case, but there is an argument to be made that because there were already a lot of like illegals, or not illegal, but like people on the border, and sending them away counted as deportation. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the argument that Trump
is it. When you deny asylum claims, does that count as deportation?
No,
I don't know for sure. Or it might be there might be like one slice of their.
Yes and no. Like if you deny an asylum claim and you're in custody, then you will be deported. Yes, that counts as a deportation. But if let's say you claim asylum from a home country, which under the new rules you could do that, then that's not a deportation because you never made it into the country.
You're saying you
Yeah,
guys are rookies.
I,
You guys are
I
rookies.
think
You just
more.
say he's deported 5,000. Like Obama deported 5,000 per day. You know, they were
Well, it
all
was 1,000.
deportations. No. It's 5,000. Rookie. No, it doesn't matter what you say. You just say it, and you stop trying to back it up with facts.
All right, sure.
Until you are kicking out Trump supporting Hispanics.
I mean,
But
That's a rookie number.
I think you can see that now is Trump. He sold the messaging on like, oh, I'm going to get rid of like the gangs and like the harsh criminals, and it was an easy message to get behind. And then, so what happens is like when people are kind of seeing this from the outside in, um, they're already kind of convinced, well, like that's what he's doing. So it's easy for people to get lost in the weeds of like all the particulars and legalities and like because in a lot of people's mind it's like, well, he's just trying to figure out how he can get rid of like these crazy gang members. So and then they kind of like start to be lax on like what the actual because I think your average person doesn't know. I mean, I don't even know all the details of all that's legal. I mean, I've learned more about it in like the past week with listening to like, lawyers and stuff argue about it, but I don't know all the details because it's not something I don't think in most people's lives it's something people have paid attention to other than just the general idea of like deporting someone and like, okay, that like ICE goes after them and apprehends them and then maybe they go before some type of judge or panel to verify that they need to be deported and that's how it is. But now that it's like front and center, and people are being confronted with these debates on like, well, are they actually doing it a legal way? Like most people are probably shrugging their shoulders, like I don't know. But if you've sold the idea that these people are the most dangerous people, and like we need to get rid of them, it once you sell people that that's what you're doing, then I think it tends to make people looser on like caring about due process and all
you
that.
gonna say it, X Fister, or do I have to say it?
I was thinking, what?
Oh, I was gonna say your magic word. Well, I'm gonna say it then. It's fear mongering. Fear mongering for the win.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, but I think that was like a lot of the campaign, like even on a totally different thing, like the Doge thing, they sold the idea of we're getting rid of fraud, waste, and abuse. So now, anytime Elon says, "Oh, I cut this amount out," people are like, "Well, he's cutting out waste," and it's like, well, how do you judge whether it's waste or not? Well, they said that's what they're doing, so I'm just going to trust that what they're cutting is waste and abuse.
Something keeps you made
And
wrong.
the issue
like everything.
Yeah, and one of the issues I think is like some of the downstream effects you're not going to see immediately. So like by the time it starts hitting people, it's like too late because you can't just like reverse all that stuff short term. It once the damage is done, it will take time to like rebuild what needs to be rebuilt.
And as long as they own to live, that's all that matters.
Well, it's just I don't like that we're playing this game at this point where we're just saying, "Oh, Trump's deportation numbers are rookie numbers." What Biden and Obama did was foul. Like the amount of people they deported is definitely a black mark on their legacy, and I don't think anybody's going to think about it compared to the open nature by what Trump is doing. So
Just on the face of it, I refuse to accept that the deportations that Obama and Biden were doing were nearly as I keep using the word extreme. What would be a good word? Nearly as disgusting, nearly as rancid as the way that Trump is going about these. Like they weren't like putting carrying like plainclothes cops and
It's all the produce that's about to go rancid. All the produce.
Sent them to prison.
yes,
shaving their
aggressive
heads.
and heartless. Thank you, Kyle. It is aggressive, heartless, downright fucking evil.
Yeah, I don't think for a second that any person was like had a black mask on their face and like taken into a van and then taken to a country that they weren't from. I just refuse to believe. Like the numbers just don't. Like the numbers definitely they have to come from somewhere. I refuse to believe Obama was deporting twice as many illegal aliens. Like he clearly wasn't doing that in fucking vans with plainclothes cops and shit.
Yeah, I don't think Obama was black bagging people.
Yeah, so it obviously was done like on the border. They count like when they say Obama deportations, they obviously mean some other. They're including some other types of deportations. It can't all be like through legal due process and shit.
I'm gonna
Why is
say
ICE running up? Why is ICE running up on people in like ski masks? It's like weird. Is that like common? Is that the way it's always been?
I hope not.
yeah, exactly, Kyle. It's the fact that they've done it openly, disgustingly, aggressively, and unceremoniously. And it's just a different breed of callousness. It's open callousness with a criminal element to it. But here we are, and a lot of people say this is what I
have
voted
another
for.
question.
Go ahead.
I have another question. I've seen Cory Booker's face, but every time I imagine him filibustering, I imagine Keegan-Michael Key. Is it just me, or is that like
Okay,
someone else?
and now Zephyr is racist. And we're gonna move
No,
on.
I mean, no,
look
he's
very
not
much
wrong.
Zephyr, are you
He's
saying
not wrong. Cory
they all look
Booker
the same
does
to you?
look like Keegan-Michael Key.
Let me call Zephyr racist for at least another day.
Zephyr, look at Kai. How close does he look to Cory Booker? Do they all look the same to you?
No, Kai looks like a Japanese like musician, some sort.
Mongolian. Come on now.
No, I play along with the meme, but if I were the originator, I would have put him as a Japanese guitarist or some shit.
Did you say Dark Golian?
Mongolian.
I quote it. Yes, Kyle. He's saying that Cory Booker looks like Obama's anger translator. That's absolutely what he's saying.
And, I don't know all the situations with deportations. I think it's, I don't necessarily think deportations are wrong. And they could, some of the Obama ones could, and Biden ones might be wrong in some way that I don't know, but um I think we're kind of like counter pilling against what we're fighting against, right? Where it seems a little bit like we're just saying, well, we know this is wrong because we want to say it's wrong for Trump, but the reason why Trump's are wrong is very different.
You know what Trump should do to increase the deportation numbers? He should allow illegal immigrants into the country and then just round them up at the border and send them out.
What?
Automatic.
Well, I mean, I think if he was legitimately targeting only like gang members and like criminals and stuff, I think he would probably have more support because I don't really have any issue deporting gang members, but you have to actually do it whatever the legal way is with the due process that's required. And I don't know every little detail on how it's done, but it seems like he's not, or the administration is not necessarily following those rules.
Well, the
Wasn't
deal
there a
is
guideline given out by ICE?
I mean, I'm sure there was, but they're not going to follow it because they don't give a shit.
No.
The deal
The
is
guideline was all he has to do is think it was a gang tattoo and then push it to a superior, and the superior agrees with him. They can deport him.
and that's what
I'm
I'm
pretty sure
saying.
that's what.
So once that happens, they're going to create a story that this person was X or Y. So if this person ever got questioned in regards to gang things, they don't even have to produce any evidence of this. So they're making claims without evidence. And because people just kind of want to believe that this is the reality, they're just going to say, oh, well, this person had gang ties and the whole deal. I think they were trying to, what is it? They were trying to play down what the Atlantic was saying because they don't like the Atlantic, to say that this person is being propped up as more than he is, and this person was gang affiliated. And I think they tried to say he was like Tren de Aragua. Like, it's ridiculous. But there's literally no proof behind any of the claims that they're saying. You're gonna make me look for this story. But
I'm sorry, there's like half a dozen stories. Which one were we talking about?
So it was I think it was the White House
The
press
gay
secretary.
barber, the hump roll.
I think it was the press secretary.
What'd she do?
She was saying in a briefing how what they were saying in the Atlantic wasn't true about this person that they deported, and this person definitely had gang ties. Well, giving no proof, like, because the person never went to court, they produced no evidence that he was in a gang. I think it was just the whole idea that he was ever questioned at some point.
What happens when
Hey,
they
by the way,
start
is that all
deporting like actual Americans, like which they already have done? Or what happens when they start deporting actual Americans just because of dissent and not giving them like just wanting to get rid of them without giving them due process?
I mean, at least say it with your chest.
Hey, where did you find that supposed leak from Elon? That conversation with Elon and Trump.
Oh, that got posted in a different Discord.
But I mean, I'm not seeing anything about anywhere else, so I'm not sure. That must be AI or something.
There was a recording.
That would have been top. That'd be top news right now if that was real.
Oh, you think it's fake, or it's possibly fake?
Well, I mean, I would see some corroboration on it. Maybe it's like super recent or something. I don't know. I'm not seeing really anything.
I'll have to look for it.
You know that whole thing, like, you know, where people would get a Chinese letter tattooed on their body. What if it said something like "I'm a gang member" or something? And they didn't know. They thought it meant hope.
Yeah, the Yakuza are next. They're gonna change the Trenderagua to Yakuza, and what are the Chinese ones called? The Triads.
The Triad.
They have affiliation with the Triads to kick them out.
Yeah,
It's
so
just
here we
absolutely
go.
absurd.
Are there any Indian gangs that are famous in America?
Okay,
No, but
so
what
I'm seeing,
Okay,
I'm seeing is that the audio was faked. Looks like it was generated by AI.
Oh,
I'm seeing this from, or at the very least,
God damn it,
there's
Leethy, you're spreading misinformation on your platform.
But it was fun.
yeah.
Yeah, at the
Let
very
that go.
least, there's no evidence that it's legitimate. But like, there's apparently an AI like deepfake detection tool out there that says high likelihood that it's.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So to some real news, the press secretary went on a minute-long tirade about how President Trump is trying to save Americans from foreign terrorists by unjustly ousting undocumented aliens from the country without due process. She also tried to justify the deportation of non-TDA members, Aragua members, by adding the president promised to conduct mass deportations of criminal aliens. There's a litany of criteria for immigration customs enforcement agents used to ensure these aliens qualify as foreign terrorists and qualify for deportation. She snapped, there has been a plethora of cases in recent weeks involving the cruel deportation of migrants accused of being affiliated with TDA people with no evidence. And she went on to like just start naming off every incident where a gang member did something to an American. And I think she reeled off like 10 different situations. And all I can say is that is like pure fear mongering.
Hey, Zephyr, I have a question for you.
What's up?
So you don't assign much importance to all these special elections that have been happening. What about the Canadian election that's happening this month? Like the Conservatives were pretty much a lock to win that election until Trump started fucking with Canada. And now, like, the Liberals are surging like crazy. And it looks like Trump pretty much will have saved Canada from like Trump fucked up to a degree that Canada is now not going to go conservative because of Trump. Like now, obviously, Canada is like a fraction of the United States in terms of global power. But if you take things like these special elections at the Supreme Court, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania last week, Democrats flipped the Pennsylvania State House. Now they now control it. Same thing happened, I think, in a race in what other state? Yeah, they flipped. Fuck, what was it? Minnesota. Minnesota Democrats took flipped their state house too. So you're getting these state legislatures flipping and state supreme courts flipping, and then now potentially Canada. At some point, it's going to matter that all of these things are happening, right?
No, I'm not saying that it doesn't matter. I'm just saying that for me, it's just my personal feelings, right? Like I'm not obviously data matters.
I mean, listen,
But
people are going to tell me I'm on hopium, right? Every time I point stuff like this out, but
yeah,
I'm just
I'm not
saying.
going to say that. Obviously, data has is there to be inferred from, right? Like you can't
I
just
mean, does it make up for the 2024 election? No, but I'm
right.
just saying, like,
I'm just saying
if
that
you,
like this data, I personally I
yeah,
don't put too much stock into it until I see something reach critical mass, which at this moment in time for me is flipping the house.
Therefore, you're too young to be
Sure,
black pilled.
again, yeah. I'm just talking about my own personal feelings. I'm
Leave
not saying
that
that
to
you
us
are
old
wrong.
folks.
I'm not saying that you are wrong. I'm just
now
saying
by
that
rights, I should be the uh, pessimistic, codgety old man.
I've I've kind of I don't know, yeah. Nothing has gone since
Yeah,
Obama. Nothing has gone the way
what's really,
that should have would have been
since the
ideal.
election, what's really helped me like not like get depressed or anything is that I've lived through these things before. Now, admittedly, like
Not as
no one's
severe
been
as
as
this.
crazy as Trump, but yeah, I'm not talking about the intensity of the insanity, but I'm just saying I've lived through these big losses in power, and I like it kind of gives you enough of a perspective to where you know, sort of this too shall pass kind of vibes. Like I remember 2016, and it seemed like
It's
that was the end of the world. And
2016,
then
it's 9/11, it's Vietnam. It's like there's
yeah,
been
yeah, yeah. So many,
like
or just
factually
even
worse
just
things that have
political
happened.
revolutions. Like
Yeah.
1980 was one of those. Was the first such revolution that I like lived through. I was on a high school debate team at the time, so like I was sort of a newly minted kid who paid attention to politics at that point. And that was that in Ronald Reagan, like that revolution was like it was incredible that it happened so close after Watergate because the perception was, oh, Republicans are never gonna survive this, and then like
As
4 years
a
later they get a 12-year domination. So yeah, I've seen this happen. It's not to say that I don't think Trump is like a unique danger in a lot of ways. He is, but at the same time, like in 5 years, can I look back at this and go, okay, this turned out better than I thought, or like we were able to
yeah,
do
it's
something?
like
Yeah,
in hindsight, everything seems to be, I guess, slightly more mellow than what it
you
was.
you take things a little bit more in
Oh,
stride when you've been through
Yeah,
so many panics before.
yeah. What I will give my hopium for like people my age, like late millennial, early Gen Z, and Gen Zers, is like, yeah, like we're gonna inherit like a pretty bad economy. So invest now. It doesn't like it can only go up.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
in some ways with Trump though, like he's he's always worse than what we project.
Yes.
Yeah,
No, I agree. I mean, I think it's far easier to underestimate how bad he is than to overestimate. But it's not a question of how bad is he. It's a question of how how much can like how fruitful is it to resist? And I think resisting is like critically important. And I think it does more than you think. Like a lot of people think, oh, Trump's popularity is going down. Like that's not going to matter. We don't have an election for a year and a half. But no, it does matter because if his popularity is below a certain point, that makes it more viable for some Republicans, especially like purple district Republicans or even blue district Republicans, to not vote with Trump, right? Because he's not going to be able to threaten them with a primary in the same way as if he would if he had 50% approval, you know?
Dude, if the next Republican president that actually does a decent job is never going to lose, because the last two have done bad jobs and they got reelected again.
Well, you would think so, but the last president, Republican president, to do a decent job was Pappy Bush, and he had one term. It's just one slight economic downturn was all it took.
Do you think there's a disadvantage for Democrat? Well, I would say recently where they come into office on the heels of like a mess being left for them and so much time, resources, and like political process goes into like just righting the ship that like it's hard for them to like focus on like long term solution stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think Biden didn't get a chance to do a lot of long-term stuff, right? Or to the extent that he did, he wasn't around long enough to make sure that it got implemented, right? So, like, a lot of the infrastructure bill, a lot of the stimulus bills and stuff like that he passed are now just being undone or just like not executed by the current administration. So that kind of fucks everything up. Like for instance, all those EV subsidies, which now that I think about it, I thought it was critically important that those EV subsidies, be used because we're trying to transition from one to another. But the more I look at the numbers now, the more I think it's too late. Like the momentum has already started. And I don't think Trump can stop it. And I think at this point, it doesn't matter that much if we subsidize EVs anymore.
Well,
but
was part of the subsidies also for the competition between different companies that made the EVs, and like because if you have the subsidy, it would help like because is Tesla is what far and away still like number one. I mean, I know they've had the recent stuff going on, but
BYD's number one.
Who?
BYD.
Okay, for like American sales.
No, it doesn't really matter who's number one in America because we don't buy that many EVs here. Number one worldwide is BYD.
Oh, well, yeah. I just meant in terms of like America giving subsidies for them. Like, what would our choices be to go like for buying them?
Yeah,
I mean, I know there's
yeah. If we were to continue to give subsidies, then Tesla would get the lion's share of them, no doubt. But we're not going to give subsidies anymore. Like Trump has canceled that, so that means EV growth in general is going to stall here. Maybe you'll see continued growth in places like California where they have their own subsidies, but I wouldn't be surprised if California tried to do subsidies in a way that excluded Tesla. I think that would be really funny if they did. And they could easily do it because Biden tried to do that. Biden tried to say you had to be a union shop to be eligible for subsidies, but Tesla rose a stink and that got reversed. But I can see California doing it, saying you have to have a union in order to qualify for the subsidies. And they're getting pretty good numbers there. But for the most part, EV growth is going to be global. And America's just going to have to join late. But I mean, if Europe and Asia are going EV, then America's eventually going to. We're not going to be the only ones to drive gasoline cars. Like Americans aren't going to stand for that, especially when gas cars are going to continue to cost $30,000 and EVs are going to, be sub 20,000 at some point because they keep, the technology keeps improving and the cost keeps coming down.
I mean, it just from a logical standpoint, it just doesn't make sense not to embrace new emerging technology. Like obviously you have to have a transition period because because a tech is out there doesn't mean it's accessible for everyone. But once you see that it's a valid product that works as intended, trying to resist it is just idiotic. Like you should be going full ahead, like build the infrastructure that needs to be built to get these going, and that way once they become like a product for the middle class versus just I guess upper middle and higher, it's going to be better. Like I don't understand
Yeah,
the
I think,
resistance.
I think what's going to happen is we're going to continue to see some progress in blue states. Red states are going to fall behind. At some point, people are going to be tired of paying for gas all the time when their neighbors aren't, stuff like that. And so, yeah, I mean, it'll get delayed a little bit in the United States, but you look at the rate at which, did you know China is now, they've passed the 50% mark. The majority of new cars sold now every month are EVs. So it's just a matter of time. By the end of the decade, their smog rates are going to plummet. Their cancer rates are going to go down. Like, this is one of the benefits of cleaner air. Same thing's
Yeah,
going to happen in Europe.
I
It's
wish.
inevitable here. You don't even
I
need
wish.
to ban anything. You just let the market forces do what they do.
Damn it, I was
And
gonna Ray. You mentioned
what?
something that
Great. We'll talk.
Zephyr was he posted in the Discord about how China having cleaner air has basically caused more climate change.
Global warming, to be specific.
Global
Wait,
warming.
what? How
So-
clean air causes global warming?
So here's the thing: this ash and the smog and like the particulates in the air were kind of cooling the planet, like the same way when there's like dust in the air, it kind of reflects sunlight away. So now that the air's cleaner, we're getting higher rate of global warming.
Oh, right. But no, because smog does the opposite. It does that, but it also does the reverse, which is
They warm it up longer.
normally heat dissipates from the earth, right? But you have to have that clear pathway back to space. So yeah,
So the smog
It's-
does
smog
not let
traps heat.
sunlight hit the planet. So what people have to
No,
understand,
yeah,
global
just
warming
both of
isn't
those.
global warming isn't sun rays coming in, is the sun rays that touch the ground and get reflected back that cause global warming if they are not allowed to escape. So the smog basically prevents the sun rays from hitting the earth. So the actual global warming rays are less in number, I guess.
Yeah,
Right,
you'll
for
just get cancer. You'll just get cancer.
Yeah,
from
Yeah, that's
the
not
air.
how
you
it
get
works.
cancer, but I'm just again
I understand
clearing
what you're saying,
smog
but that's not
is
how
an
it works.
overall good. Clearing smog is an overall good, like in terms of cancer, health,
Like
all of
by
that.
your logic, the moon should be really hot,
No, but moon doesn't have an
right? Because
atmosphere to heat,
right,
like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
to trap the
it's
heat.
because it has no atmosphere, or Mars should be hot, or whatever. But it's what happens is the greenhouse effect kicks in. Like it
No,
traps the heat.
Venus is hotter. If you
Yeah,
want to go to other planets, Venus is hotter.
yeah, it's hotter at night. It's also hotter at night
Yeah,
because it traps
Yeah,
the heat in.
yeah.
Leafy.
What's up?
I wish Tiberius hadn't left because, like, when you were talking to him earlier, and he was kind of pushing back on you on like the taxing of like the wealthy, and I'm thinking like it's not just in terms of like what it meant for like a bank account for like middle class and lower, but like it was other things like building infrastructure in the country. And like you look at modern times now, we have emerging technology with like EVs. We need infrastructure, and it's like okay, although like when you're cutting these taxes that fund that stuff, you got to think that it slows down the building of like infrastructure, and especially in like non-blue states that aren't even full on embracing it. It's the stuff like that. I think go into like the higher marginal tax rates on the wealthy. It's not just like, oh, it means more money for my bank account. Now, the downstream effects might cause that too, but I think like infrastructure wise, that's like a major thing people overlook when they talk about how we've been like constantly cutting the taxes.
No, I agree with you. We just weren't able to get there because there wasn't any real concession to even get to the point of like what those taxes would do, how it would affect people. The idea that corporations by far use more in tax dollars in regards to infrastructure than your average person. Like, we weren't able to get there, unfortunately. But it was a step in a decent direction.
Yeah, I just think it's the investment in America. Like that's what it was, and I mean that's how I would always argue. Like tax rates of that era was like it was an investment back into America. And I know the argument was like, well, if you cut the taxes and let the private sector handle, but like what we've seen is no, that's not true.
Yeah, no,
No, what
absolutely.
happens is they keep the money instead. And like what happened shortly after like like market tax rate was killed, pensions went away. Why would pensions go
He said
away
pensions
except
were
for
shit. He didn't like pensions. That's why I said like it's so difficult to even have the conversation when he doesn't agree with most of the metrics that happen.
Versus what though? Like, okay, he doesn't like pensions on principle, or like what's his better? What was his better? Did he? Because I was cooking
His
when you were doing the
argument
one-on-one.
was
So
his argument was pension work for if the average lifespan of the population is like around 60, it doesn't work for when the average lifespan is around 80. The negative points for pension are if you die at an early age, then you don't get any benefit out of it. Your family don't get any benefit. Whereas for 401k, because it's private, like once you put in money, it's yours. Like even if you die early, your family can take money out of your 401k account and use it for their. That was his argument. At least what I
but
remember of it.
wouldn't a retirement pension almost kind of help you live longer? I mean,
But I guess isn't if you use 401k wisely, isn't that equivalent or maybe even slightly higher
or
return on
well,
it?
I think well with 401ks you can lose your you can lose your company match if something happens with the company. I don't know because like I assume I don't know if you I'm sure you have a 401k going to that for you know how you have your contribution and the company match.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm not sure if like something happens with the company, like your portion is safe, or if that can go too in the wrong situation. But I know the company half of it can go away if the markets go south.
Yeah, I don't know how that would
My
work.
account might know.
I don't know how that would work in like a legal sense if there's any legal protections for it. But I would assume that if something that bad is happening to the company, then people would probably be switching companies over. Which I guess if we are even talking about like privatizing everything, then yeah, switching companies would fall under own your own life, damn it. Why are you relying on a company if they're fucking you over, change jobs or some shit?
Yep.
If you're
So
in that
Yeah.
sort of mental headspace as a country.
that note, gonna raid out. Who to raid into? Let's see. It's been a fun night. Let's raid. Okay.
I was like, I don't even know who's still going.
Been a blast, y'all. Thanks again. I appreciate the chatters. As always, you're the true
Whoa.
winners for the evening. Please join me again next week. I think I'll be talking to Elder Drazi, so hopefully catch y'all next week. Peace.
But